This young man was born at the very bottom of society with no money, no power. In short, he had absolutely nothing to his name. But then a life-changing opportunity opened up for him. When the Era game launched, LamCapped climbed to the top of the rankings through pure grinding. He was just one step away from reaching the pinnacle, and today was the day that would decide it all. On the arena floor, he stood as the first warrior of the Era, nicknamed the Immortal War Emperor, facing off against Bakli Trong Than, the top-ranked sword saint. LamCapped possessed incredible strength. His gameplay was flawless, and his technique had absolutely no weak points. Every sword strike was aimed straight for a vital spot. He was like an Asura risen from hell. On the other side, Bakli appeared clearly outmatched. His defense crumbled rapidly, leaving him unable to fight back, and his weapon was shattered by LamCapped's strike. His health bar had plummeted to the absolute minimum. Both the audience and the announcer were in agreement. The champion of the Path of the Strongest was about to be crowned. LamCapped slung his greatsword over his shoulder and walked toward Bakli, wearing a satisfied smile. He reached out a hand, intending to help his opponent up with sportsmanship. "Looks like I've won this one. I've really lost, haven't I?" Bakli swallowed a mouthful of blood, then suddenly flashed a cunning grin. "No, I can't lose. How could I possibly lose here? As long as I use that power, your hard work isn't even worth mentioning." With that, his sword, which had been broken in two, was repaired even stronger than before. The infinite durability weapon effect had been activated, and the price for that effect was 50,000 yuan. LamCapped was stunned, eyes wide. Damn it, that dog Bakli is actually playing pay to win. Right in the middle of the match, while he was still staring in disbelief, Bakli lunged to attack. LamCapped hurried to pull himself together and fight back, but the tempo of the battle had completely shifted. "You're so naive," Bakli said, his voice dripping with arrogance. "Do you really think you can defy fate just by working hard? I doubt you'll ever understand." Everything that followed happened so fast that LamCapped could barely see his movements. That was because Bakli had spent another 900,000 yuan to activate a teleportation effect. Instantly, he appeared behind LamCapped and shelled out another 1,200,000 yuan to activate the one-hit kill skill. Bakli's blade pierced through LamCapped's chest. A red status window appeared before his eyes, serving as a death warrant. "Time to settle our destiny. You have been defeated by Bakli Trong Than. The loser's account will be permanently deleted, and all assets will be transferred to the winner." LamCapped gritted his teeth in agony. He never expected to lose in this way. As his body collapsed, LamCapped clung to his final shred of consciousness, demanding to know why. "Why did you betray me? Answer me. Why were you willing to cheat just to beat me? Why betray the promise we made?" Bakli didn't answer. He only offered a cold, callous, "I'm sorry," then dealt LamCapped one final blow. After this hit, there was no way for him to recover. The warning alert in front of LamCapped changed again. This time it stated that he had been disqualified from the competition. LamCapped felt his body fading away. He had failed and failed in a way that left him deeply bitter. He had been just one step away from touching the supreme throne of the Era. This time he had even bet his life on it, but in the end it was nothing but defeat. It was entirely due to his opponent's treachery. LamCapped thought to himself, if he could live again, he would definitely use any means necessary to climb to that throne. The warning read, "You have lost your player status." That was the last notification LamCapped ever read. Then, for some reason, he suddenly snapped his eyes open. The sensation of being run through by a sword was truly unpleasant. It left his breathing in complete chaos. As he opened his eyes, LamCapped was still gasping for air. Then, he realized he was lying in his bedroom. "Brother, why are you lying flat on the floor? Are you practicing to be a corpse?" A voice rang out from above. LamCapped looked up, his pupils dilating to their absolute limit, because the person in front of him was his younger sister, Tich. 3 years ago, she had fallen into a coma after a car accident. Without the life support equipment in the intensive care unit, survival would have been impossible. That was why LamCapped had used every cent of his prize money, earned from the game, to pay for her medical bills. But now she was standing right in front of him, and her tone was quite spirited. LamCapped jumped up. He grabbed her shoulders with both hands, shaking her constantly. "Little sister, are you okay? Weren't you supposed to be in a hospital bed?" This time it was Tich's turn to stare in confusion. She immediately pushed her brother to the floor, climbed onto him, and gave him a smack. "Damn it, did you lose your mind from staying up all night? Who was the one sitting in front of the screen all night waiting for the server to launch, huh? Why are you pretending to forget now? His sister's words only left Lamkit more bewildered. What was this about sitting all night waiting for the server to open? He anxiously asked her, "What day is it today? What year?" Even though she didn't understand what had gone wrong with her brother. "I have no idea what crawled up my brother's brain today." But Tich Tich still replied that today is the open beta launch of the Era Online, you silly brother. Her words only made Lamkit want to curse. If that's the case, today is June 22nd, 5 years ago, and he has been reborn. Lamkit instinctively clutched his chest where Bakley's sword had pierced him. Back then, when he was betrayed, he had felt utter despair and even blamed the heavens for cutting off his path to survival. Who would have thought that the scales of fate would suddenly tip in his favor? His life, his game, everything had a chance to start over. Lamkit sat on the ground, his whole body trembling with a mix of emotions. Even though he had failed once, he now had a chance to redo it, so he swore that this time at any cost. He must reach the pinnacle of the era and pay back his debts from the previous life. He mentally calculated the savings from 3 years of work plus 100,000 borrowed from loan sharks. Then he could afford a gaming headset and start over. It looked just like a motorcycle helmet. It was a VR headset for the game era. Over time, this game had developed in parallel with the human world, creating a fever that opened up a world full of mysteries. Endless and magnificently beautiful, everyone was drawn to exploring this high-quality virtual reality world. In his past life in the era, Lamkit was known by the title of Immortal War God, relying on his intelligence, relentless effort, standard gear, and perfect technique. He climbed his way up steadily. Everyone praised him as a master player among amateurs, and before long, Lamkit became famous. That battle should have brought Lamkit the title of the strongest player, but who would have thought he would be betrayed by his closest friend Baklai Trongthan? Perhaps he was so blinded by greed for that title that he lost his mind. Lamkit truly wondered when he had started planning his betrayal. But now those things no longer mattered. It was better to seize the chance to change his life, and so he put on the game headset. A flash of light streaked before his eyes, pulling him into the virtual reality world. Just like in his previous life, the first thing to do after starting was to choose a class. Previously, the official team of Era Online never released any game guides or reviews, so all players entered here with complete ignorance about the world, and they had to discover everything for themselves. But for Lamkit, a veteran player of nearly 5 years, the Era had almost no secrets left for him. Grinding and exploring would be much easier. That was his biggest advantage in this life. Living a new life, Lamkit had determined that he must accomplish. The things he didn't do in his previous life. Naturally, the most important thing was to reach the peak in the game, becoming the strongest player whom no one could dispute. The king of technique has returned. This time, returning to the newbie village, Lamkit was no longer the clueless newbie from the past, though the attitude of other players when seeing him was truly hard to describe. Seriously. How many years has it been, and there's still someone playing a warrior? Are you out of your mind? That's the weakest class in the entire system. Even a dog would shake its head. He doesn't even have a decent weapon, yet he acts so arrogant. What is this poor guy pretending to be? Lamkit acted as if he didn't hear the whispers about him. He had truly chosen to walk the old path, becoming a warrior. With low base stats. Lamkit remembered 2 years ago during a conversation with Bak Li, he had said that even if he were reborn again, he would still choose this class. At that time, Bak Li found it hard to understand, because to him, only low-level players chose warriors. Because they couldn't afford expensive gear and couldn't use flashy spells, they just relied on their thick skin and high HP charging to the front lines to soak up damage. To put it bluntly, a warrior is born just to be a meat shield. If you really want to experience the strongest gameplay of this game, you should choose a swordsman like me, elegant and lethal. That's what Bak Li had said back then. But Lamkit still deeply believed in the powerful path that belonged to the warrior. They possessed amazing vitality in every adversity. The tougher the enemy, the stronger they became. Striving to overcome every danger to survive only in this way could one become an immortal war god, a title that belonged only to players who had survived countless battles. Tough, but are you sure that title will still exist after today? Bak Li had asked back then. How about we make a bet? After returning today, I will become the immortal war god. Ending the flashback, Lamkit returned to the newbie village. A warrior naturally has an advantage in health. Even if very poor, they won't be one-shot by minor bosses. Moreover, after completing the quest, players can advance their warrior class. That was the class advantage he had spotted in his past life. The warrior converts blood into combat power. For players with money, they only look for damage-dealing classes. The strongest or coolest ones, like mages, swordsmen, hunters, or assassins. Therefore, 9 out of 10 groups on the street are mostly a combination of these damage-dealing classes. However, the data on monsters is extremely unbalanced in the early stages of the game. I doubt they even have the ability to stand their ground, let alone stand there and deal damage. But warriors are different. They have an advantage in survival from the start. Furthermore, the weaknesses of this class can be compensated by LamCapped's knowledge of the game mechanics. Very quickly, the first quest titled First Steps was issued. The content required LamCapped to report to Alet in Mayo Town within 5 minutes. He is the NPC guide for newbies. Seeing his stern appearance, it didn't match those tattered clothes at all. LamCapped was suddenly hit by a wave of nostalgia. He never expected to run into this old man again. Before he could even say a word, he heard someone making a racket nearby. "Hey, you scrub of a warrior, you've bumped into a real player now." He looked up to see a level 2 holy knight named Balai. "What you looking to get through here? In the name of the holy light, pay me 1 gold coin or don't even think about crossing my path." The guy added that holy knight was one of the most popular classes. Especially for whales in the early game, it's a versatile class that deals damage heals and has crowd control. He couldn't believe it, the server had only been open for half an hour, and this Balai was already level 2. It seemed like that classic trick exposed on the forums in his past life: create a character, drop a ton of cash on the newbie experience pack, and then exploit the level gap. Bullying the weak and extorting protection money, Balai's arrogant attitude was truly an eyesore. LamCapped knew guys like this in the real world. They didn't understand the game mechanics at all. Even their gear was substandard. In other words, they were just paper tigers. Every new player starts with 10 gold coins, so even collecting 1 coin per person would turn a profit. But even if it was just 1 coin, LamCapped had no intention of letting this guy get the better of him. "And why should I give you money?" LamCapped countered. Balai, perhaps not used to someone talking back, let his voice rise sharply. "Because I'm stronger than you. Delete your account and start over, you idiot." As he spoke, Balai reached for his sword hilt, but before he could even draw it, LamCapped caught his wrist. His grip was so incredibly strong that no matter how hard the guy struggled, he couldn't move an inch. This was one of the starting talents for warriors: enhanced grip strength, meant to keep players from dropping their weapons, but now it was being used to neutralize Balai's resistance. Enhanced grip strength? Is that the useless talent even a dog wouldn't pick, the one that just helps you hold onto your weapon? Balai seemed in disbelief. The more the guy talked, the harder LamCapped squeezed. To others it might have been a useless talent, but to him it was the most powerful one. He applied a bit more force, and Balai's weapon clattered to the ground. The man who had been acting so aggressive moments ago was now near tears, seeing LamCapped disarm him barehanded, stripping him of his weapon. This was the unexpected effect of enhanced grip strength, a talent everyone else thought was trash, and the effect only got stronger over time. As strength stats increase, if your power is higher than your opponent's, you can easily disarm them. At level 1, LamCapped was already able to disarm Balai, proving that this level 2 Holy Knight had even less strength than a brand new character who hadn't assigned any stat points yet. He was clearly just a noob who didn't know how to play. Furthermore, except for LamCapped, perhaps no one knew that in later skill upgrades, the enhanced grip strength talent would become even more potent, eventually becoming one of the strongest talents for the class. After evolving, it becomes Titan's Grip. It's a legendary skill known for allowing the use of a 2-handed dragon-slaying greatsword with just 1 hand. However, this evolution requires picking the enhanced grip strength talent during character creation. While LamCapped was deep in thought, he suddenly noticed the crowd around them scattering. Several guards appeared in front of him. Seeing this, Balai behind him started wailing and playing the victim. "Damn you, you're finished causing trouble in a safe zone. You're going to be executed on the spot by the guards. I swear in the name of the holy light, this guy LamCapped. And he assaulted someone in public. It was him." LamCapped didn't panic. Even though guards with spears in the newbie village could one-shot a level 1 or 2 player, he calmly admitted, "Yes, I did attack Balai." Seeing this, Balai grinned ear to ear. "Look," he confessed. "Hurry up and punish him severely." But LamCapped continued, "However, this was an act of self-defense." He explained the situation in detail, and the guards suddenly shifted their focus. They turned their eyes directly toward the other guy. Seeing the guards preparing to bring down the hammer, Balai panicked. He had spent 100,000 to buy the Grand VIP newbie pack. Was he really going to get punished? and have his account deleted right here. But NPCs are just NPCs always following the rules. Anyone who causes trouble in a safe zone is labeled a villain. But on the other hand, even if you use ruthless tactics against the instigator, you won't be punished, and might even be compensated. Lam Kiet knew this better than anyone. That was why he remained so calm when the guards arrived. As expected, Balai was punished, and Lam Kiet was awarded 1 gold coin according to the system rules. Balai was so angry he could pop a blood vessel while everyone else. Even those who hated Lam Kiet dared not mess with him after witnessing such a total reversal. With his 1 gold coin prize in hand, Lam Kiet sauntered away. He hadn't managed to talk to Alet before Balai interrupted him. Now he walked over to the old man and sat down comfortably. "Long time no see, Alet," Lam Kiet began. On the weathered face of the old man, a look of confusion appeared. "Young adventurer, you recognize me. This server has only been open for 1 day. We aren't just acquaintances, we're practically close friends, Alet. It's been at least 5 years since we last met." Alet obviously didn't believe a word of it, thinking it was just a prank. He didn't hold it against him and simply did his job, handing Lam Kiet a newbie starter pack. There are 3 options and you can only pick one. Either 10 gold coins, 3 beginner health potions, or a crude iron sword specialized for swordsmen as the rumors go. Everyone thinks that even a fool would know to choose the money, especially since the player class is dirt poor, and those 10 gold coins are worth at least 100,000 on the black market. However, Lam Kiet's choice goes against the crowd. He chooses the 4th option because in his previous life, it took 3 years for people to discover there was even a hidden choice. Among the beginner quests, Alet looks surprised while the bystanders start mocking him. Is this guy crazy? Is he hallucinating? Where would there even be a 4th option? Facing the old man's inquisitive gaze, Lam Kiet calmly says, "The campfire before the dawn will be extinguished. It cannot be helped." "Where did you hear that?" Alet's expression becomes even more unbelievable. "When the black moon sinks into the eternal night, forgotten things will return creeping through the cracks of time. From the ashes the fire roars, being both the ruins of ancient gods and the dawn of a new era." Lam Kiet continues slowly. "Do you still remember the code you gave me back then?" Alet, as if time had traveled back to 5 years ago in the previous life when Lam Kiet completed a hidden quest to protect Alet's family from monsters at that time. He was so moved that he wept endlessly. "I don't know how to thank you. Lam Kiet, I am just a beginner NPC guide, so I don't really have any significant rewards to give, but even if it's the slightest possibility one day you need my help, then let me know this signal. Even if I change my identity to someone else and the system no longer recognizes you, I will always remember you. You are my savior." The thing that Lam Kiet just read out loud was exactly the signal Alet told him in the previous life. Surprise flickered in his eyes, but he quickly calmed down. Of course, Alet doesn't remember the events of the previous life. But now, he is certain that Lam Kiet is someone very important to him. The condition to trigger the hidden quest has been met, and Lam Kiet has indeed unlocked the 4th reward package. It is not a beginner's reward anymore, but a reward for returning players. In the previous life, Lam Kiet was only 1 step away from becoming the strongest. But in the end, he was defeated by underhanded tactics, even though sneak attacks are normal in this world. But he refuses to accept it, thinking that. Lam Kiet resolutely chooses that 4th reward, and he immediately receives a beginner's talent stone. This thing allows him to gain an additional talent. The surrounding crowd is left wide-eyed by Lam Kiet. Their jaws drop time and time again. Whoa, is that a talent selection gem? Each account can only link a talent once at the start. This is something even spending big money can't buy. Lam Kiet grips the stone tightly in his hand. In this life, he wants to become the strongest. He needs to have the best from the very beginning. This hidden quest is the first step to changing his fate. So Lam Kiet uses that stone. He chooses his 2nd talent as Oath of the Sword. Alet says that the Oath of the Sword is a talent created by the legendary sword Saint Casimir. Those who practice it will be considered as the one who bears the oath to the sword, receiving superhuman sword skills, but for their whole life they can only fight using a sword. That is a huge restriction, so he cannot help but confirm again whether Lam Kiet is sure about this decision or not. "Of course I'm sure," he replies. A moment ago, Lam Kiet made the crowd green with envy, but now that choice turns him into a laughingstock. They start whispering again. "Ha ha, he actually chose Oath of the Sword nowadays. Are there still fools choosing sword skills as their 2nd talent, choosing a low-level piece of junk weapon, and then being confident enough to master it? What a noob!" Unlike them, Alit does not belittle Lamkit's choice. He says that the strongest weapon has never been the sword but the person wielding the sword, so Alit is extremely confident that someone as determined as him will achieve great things. After saying thanks, Lamkit leaves. In the previous life, he had to reach level 30 to get a second talent, but in this life he has touched it right from the opening. Now his combat power is already extremely high, from which he can level up extremely quickly. The distance to the throne of the strongest is one step closer. The initial advantage gained by spending money will decrease rapidly after level 5. Those who play the financial system from the start, if they want to maintain their advantage, have no other choice, other than burning more and more money into the game. But a free-to-play player who only uses skill to level up like him is the most reliable. Even a simple iron sword can accomplish great things. The sword does not possess the brute force of an axe, nor the suppressive power of a spear, and it is far from being as flashy as a magic staff. However, apart from him, no one realized that a sword looking so ordinary is the weapon that requires the most genuine masterful skill. In Lamkit's previous life, he had chosen the grip strength enhancing talent from the beginning, then chose an iron sword and started going out to destroy monsters to start leveling up, but this time, he has an additional beginner's talent stone obtained from Alit. This has accidentally caused him to skip the crude iron sword, so right now, Lamkit has no weapon, which also means if I were to make different choices in this life, then the story would veer in a completely different direction, and when the story shifts, the outcome might change too. A name immediately popped into Lamkit's mind, Baklai. He told himself that before meeting him again, he had to become even stronger. The bitter fate he suffered in his past life must be completely reversed in this one. Lamkit went to find a beginner's weapon stall by the roadside. A few people were huddled around looking at the items, but in their eyes it was just a pile of junk. Lamkit slowly stepped forward and picked up a low-quality wooden stick to examine. It was simply a stick that hadn't undergone any processing at all. It had an attack value, and since its primary method of attack was striking, it should have been classified as a club. But according to the info, this item was classified as both a sword and a club. This sparked a thought in Lamkit's mind. Please let me go, I'm just a normal player. Selling equipment is my only source of income, the merchant pleaded desperately. But the group of players wouldn't stop continuing to trash the stall. They even shouted insults. A normal player. Are you such a coward that you don't even know how to fight? How interesting. You should just go home and play house. What are you doing being such an eyesore in this game? Lamkit wasn't someone who liked to meddle, but this guy's actions were just too much of an eyesore. So he spoke up. A player trying to make a living is still a player. No one is higher than anyone else. There isn't a single meal that isn't prepared by a chef, and there isn't a single potion that isn't crafted by an alchemist. If it weren't for weapons made by blacksmiths, I doubt most combat-oriented players would even dare to leave the city gates. Having said this, Lamkit paused and turned to the merchant. He asked how much the stick in his hand was. The merchant was stunned, then stammered, One gold coin. Meanwhile, the guy who had just been lectured by Lamkit looked clearly annoyed. Who the hell do you think you are? Lamkit, a warrior, he replied. As expected, the other guy burst into mocking laughter. Ha ha ha, you're gonna kill me. A warrior, are you kidding me? Lamkit couldn't be bothered with him. He took 1 gold coin from the compensation he got from Balai and tossed it to the merchant. The wooden stick was now his. He had intended to leave right away, but the guy he had made a fool of clearly didn't intend to let him off that easily. You just ruined my fun. Don't you see I'm doing a good deed here? Lamkit looked at him feeling like he'd just heard a joke. A good deed? Are you talking about the way you're bullying others? You've been scammed, and you don't even know it, huh? A clueless warrior holding that wooden stick. If you dropped it on the ground, it would definitely be worthless trash that nobody would bother picking up. Yet you wasted 1 gold coin on it. Still don't get it. That merchant is... What a scammer, you idiot! Just as he said, the kid running the stall had already packed up his goods and bolted after getting his 1 gold coin. The other guy didn't want to deal with Lamkit anymore either. He felt that if he had been scammed, he deserved it. So he and his lackeys disappeared. Lamkit, of course, knew that any blacksmith shop in any beginner village would have wooden sticks even if they cost 0 gold. Nobody would bother taking them, but new players often lacked information, so if they could, they would try to buy them for the lowest price of 1 gold coin. That's why many stalls selling these sticks had popped up. Selling them at a minimal price made beginners feel like they were getting a bargain. This was a classic scam when the new era first launched, but Lamkit wasn't a beginner. He was the immortal war god, someone who had wielded thousands of divine artifacts with his own hands. His instincts wouldn't be wrong. He chose to buy it because this stick had the properties of both a sword and a club. A normal weapon classification system wouldn't produce a mistake like this, unless this was an unidentified divine artifact. Even if he couldn't identify it yet, LamKiet could still use it as a sword. And right after he obtained his first weapon, all beginners received a world quest called Terror Ghost Attack. Their mission was to protect the gates of Mio Town from being overrun by the terror ghosts. At the same time, they had to protect the crystal at the center of the town. LamKiet knew clearly that Mio Town was located on a strategic front line of the New Era continent and was one of the areas hit hardest, shared by plagues and natural disasters. This led to the constant appearance of terror ghosts, Level 2 monsters with very high attack power outside the northern gate of the town. In his past life, a year after the open beta of New Era was launched, Mio Town had vanished from the continent's map, forever likely destroyed by this army of terror ghosts. The other beginners obviously didn't know about that danger, and were currently very excited because killing monsters would yield a lot of experience points. Among the players rushing to the north gate was LamKiet. He was stopped by a guard who said that even though the situation was urgent, they didn't want new players going to the north gate just to get themselves killed. The guard advised him to return to the other 3 gates and wipe out lower-level monsters before coming here. However, LamKiet was extremely resolute. "No need, just let me through. Once you leave the town, you won't receive any more beginner protection," the guard warned. "All right, I'll find opponents of an appropriate level for myself," he replied. But in reality, even if they were higher level, it wouldn't be a problem. Since LamKiet was so determined, the guard opened the gate for him. At that moment, LamKiet received a notification because he had done a courageous deed. His reputation in Mio Town had increased by 100 points. In the game Era, there is an unspoken rule: if an NPC senses a player is attempting a challenging quest, the game encourages them to push beyond their limits, provided the difficulty is high enough. Doing so increases favorability and triggers hidden quests, just as LamKiet predicted. A guard rushed over breathless, chasing after him. "Wait! If you're really determined to do this, then could I ask you for a favor?" "Brave adventurer." The system immediately sent a notification. Hidden side quest triggered the captain's request. It was a quest intended only for players level 3 and above. Even though LamKiet was currently only level 1, this was all part of his plan. "My men are trapped in the camp of the Griffin Singer, the boss of the Terror Fiends. Please help me recover their bodies so I can give them a proper burial," the captain begged. But what LamKiet intended to do for him went far beyond just collecting 10 bodies. Taking on an over-leveled challenge could earn a player unexpected rewards, and now it might even change the future of the town itself. Seeing this, LamKiet said, "What you need isn't a funeral, Captain Lance. You know my name." The captain was stunned and asked back, "I will personally rescue them from the hands of the Griffin Singer and save this town from him. Just go ahead and prepare a victory celebration," LamKiet replied with total confidence. He knew exactly who his opponent was, the rookie destroyer, the chanting Griffin Singer. If he wanted to fully clear this dungeon, he had to be defeated by a player with a level far lower than the dungeon's requirements. That was why before starting the quest, LamKiet kept his level as low as possible, although doing this would weaken his attack power. Relying on his movements and his deep knowledge of the boss's mechanics, he could still take on a godlike boss creature even at level 1. It's just that he couldn't tell anyone about this. Even if he did, no one would believe him. Sure enough, when Lance heard he intended to go after the Griffin, he panicked and hurried to stop him. "No, that's impossible unless a miracle happens. Just stick to your own duties and wait for the Griffin Singer to leave, and that should be enough. Rest assured I am that miracle." LamKiet's voice carried the pride of a powerhouse. In truth, his confidence was well-founded. In this life, he would single-handedly tip the scales of fate in his favor. As soon as he stepped out of the city gate, a pungent scent of blood hit LamKiet, making him frown instinctively. That's right, Era was a game with extreme difficulty, filled with the designer's malice toward players. Yet because of the high rewards, players from all over the world flocked to it. By now, several groups of players had already headed out to hunt. There, he went alone while they had formed a party. Really now? The best strategy for a normal player is to party up, but LamKiet was no normal player. He intended to just ignore them and walk past. Who would have thought he'd hear a familiar voice? Hey, isn't this that fool who got scammed earlier? What's the matter, still holding on to that precious wooden stick of yours? Hey guys, look at him, haha. It's that loser from in front of the weapon shop. Lamkeet couldn't be bothered with him, simply muttered, "How boring," and walked straight ahead, but these guys wouldn't let him off that easily. A guy rushed out to block his path, looking him up and down. Hey, newbie warrior planning to solo the monsters. Look at those rags, you can tell he's a total amateur. When he's about to die, he'll definitely be begging to party up. The others in the team also openly discriminated against Lamkeet, because he wasn't just a level 1 warrior, he was carrying a wooden stick. They felt that even if he tagged along, he would only be a burden and useless. Lamkeet didn't want to argue, he just sighed. Partying might reduce risks, but the rewards have to be split, which reduces your share. Soloing a monster earns 5 times the reward of a party. Why wouldn't he go solo? In other words, if you have enough skill, partying is actually a disadvantage. Lamkeet tried to move on, but the knight attempted to grab him. Who would have thought the guy would stumble backward despite being much bigger? What the? This guy? Lamkeet looked at him with nothing but contempt. He secretly thought this knight looked strong, but his body is surprisingly weak. If I'm not mistaken, the starter talent he chose was Divine Fire. Divine Fire covers the whole body in holy flames and looks impressive, but the price is a 2-point reduction in physical strength, leaving the body as fragile as paper, which means giving up all of a knight's ability to charge into the fray. Thinking this, Lamkeet couldn't help but taunt him. A Divine Fire knight who only knows how to hide behind his team. Ha ha, what a coward. Seeing Lamkeet mock him, the knight wanted to rush over to settle the score. However, his action was interrupted because the system notified Lamkeet that he had been spotted by a terror fiend. The guy quickly ran away and threw one last line at Lamkeet. Ha, didn't expect that, did you? The terror fiend wants to send you back to the city for free. Don't blame me for that. Only then did Lamkeet realize the knight had intentionally drawn attention to lure the monster to finish him off. Even though his body was weak, his mind was a bit cunning, very different from the stupid fool he met in the city. He silently calculated that taking down a level 2 nightmare beast wouldn't be enough to level up, which was perfect for keeping his level as low as possible to face the griffin he'd have to fight it anyway. It was a good chance to warm up a bit, too. Seeing Lin Jie rush toward the beast instead of running away, the group was shocked, assuming he'd been scared out of his mind. Lin Jie charged forward with absolute confidence, able to clearly track his enemy's movements to execute perfect dodges. He knew that as a warrior you only become stronger when pushed to the brink of death. Only by putting yourself in mortal danger can you become an immortal war god. Only by constantly challenging death can you become the strongest in this life. Wake up, you idiot! Lin Jie unleashed a critical hit, wiping out 6 HP from the enemy. Provoked its attack power instantly surged by 50%, leaving the onlookers stunned. Because this was the moment the novice monster was unleashing its most powerful strike. Charging out was practically suicide, yet Lin Jie did it anyway because his current power wasn't enough. He had to get closer to his opponent, and this time as he lunged recklessly. His critical hit cost the nightmare beast another 10 health points, knocking the weapon from its hand. Taking advantage of the beast, clutching its head in pain, Lin Jie pressed the attack. Blow after blow rained down. With relentless strikes, in just a moment he had successfully soloed the beast. He gained 100 experience points and 5 copper coins. Constantly breaking limits is the only way to truly open up this new era, and Lin Jie's performance just now had truly surpassed the expectations of that party. No one could believe he'd managed to solo a level 2 nightmare beast while wielding only a wooden club and sitting at level 1. The knight in the other group even thought it was just a fluke. But their leader, having observed everything, realized the truth. He stood up and approached, saying, "Interesting kid. You must be one of the players from the internal test, right? You know how to handle yourself. A player with less than a few hundred hours clearly couldn't have trained those skills. Want to join forces with me? I'm looking for a pro player," he offered with good intentions, but Lin Jie immediately replied that he wasn't interested. However, the man didn't give up and continued. "Heading in this direction, you're planning to challenge the griffin, aren't you? The guide says it requires a 5-man party, and I've already got 4. We're just missing one you." As soon as he finished, Lin Jie received a notification. Red is inviting you to join the party. Accept. So this annoying guy's name was Red. To recruit Lin Jie, he even offered a 50-50 loot split, yet Lin Jie remained completely unmoved. 5 players was just the system's recommended number for the Griffin Challenge, not a hard requirement. Seeing Lin Jie's attitude, Red started to break into a cold sweat. You aren't planning on doing this solo, are you? This kind of party raid can't be cleared just by one person's skill, kid. Listen here. The first clear reward for the Griffin includes a special title and legacy gear. There are currently no less than 20 groups across the server attempting this. And our team has the best shot. It's your lucky day that we're even asking you to join. Red spoke as if he were granting a favor, and his lackeys nodded frantically, adding that in Phase 2, the Griffin would summon several elite monsters. Without a tank, you'll be wiped out in one go. Hearing this, Lin Jie laughed, giving him a look of cold indifference. Are you guys not just missing a tank? I happen to be a warrior, right? Red immediately shook his head vigorously, claiming he truly valued Lin Jie's talent, and felt his strength was a perfect fit for their elite squad, not just because he needed to fill a tank slot. Lomkeet naturally didn't buy into this trap. He saw right through them. They just wanted a scapegoat to draw the boss's attention. Seeing Lomkeet close his eyes as if weighing his options, Rick carefully tried to ask again, expecting another refusal. To everyone's surprise, Lomkeet readily agreed this time. Of course he wasn't stupid. The difficulty and rewards of a dungeon boss fight scale based on the number of participants. If the full 5-person squad enters, the boss triggers its full-power combat mode, and upon defeat, it drops special rewards. Besides, after completing the hidden quest, the Griffin Chanter will be removed from the boss list forever. That means the loot it drops is one of a kind. In this life, Lomkeet wants to be the strongest, so this reward is crucial for his upcoming level up. Although he agreed to join the party, he was secretly calculating how to snatch this unique reward for himself. On the way to the Griffin Chanter's dungeon entrance, Lomkeet casually wiped out a fair number of ghouls. Jack's group watched him and could only sigh in frustration. What an idiot. You're supposed to conserve your stamina before entering a dungeon. Rick muttered. Does this fool have any idea how hard it is to get healing potions in the early game? The mage standing next to him chimed in. Someone calculated that you have to kill 100 monsters just to get 2 copper coins, let alone a green tier item, unless it's from the paid starter pack. Very few players get green gear on the first day of the server, the knight named Hack added. Just then, after Lomkeet finished off a pack of monsters, the wooden stick in his hand began to glow. A notification appeared saying it was searching for a host. Hack said, "Stop staring at it. Players can't use monster weapons. This is why you don't pick stuff up off the ground. If you could just grab monster weapons and sell them, the price of goods on the first day would have inflated 100 times over." Clearly, Hack didn't know what Lomkeet was actually looking for. He didn't care about the junk weapons from the ghouls. The system just kept notifying him that the stick was searching for a host. Was it trying to merge with a monster's equipment? Thinking this, Lomkeet started searching. He found a blade and merged it with the wooden stick in his hand. Branches of the world tree merging with the weapon. A notification popped up before Lomkeet obtained Ghoul's Sword Authority. Critical hits increase bleed effect. Critical hit rate minus 99%. Attack plus 10. Strength plus 1. Branches of the world tree. Lomkeet remembered seeing it at an auction 3 years ago. Their appearance could vary, depending on the location and owner, but they all start as a wooden stick. The incredible thing about this heirloom weapon is that it can wrap around anything to turn it into a sword. To be precise, it's a divine artifact that acts as a sword hilt. This legacy artifact was eventually sold for 100 million yuan. Even Lomkeet could not believe the weapon he bought for 1 unit of currency was actually this divine artifact. In the early stages, players only have white tier gear or nothing at all yet. Even the lowliest monsters are equipped with green tier items. The power gap between players and their opponents is fundamentally unequal. However, Lomkeet could use the branches of the world tree to pick up weapons that ordinary people can't use while in the hands of monsters, and he could keep swapping them for free. This really is a stroke of luck from the heavens. They stepped through the dungeon gate. Inside, it was chaos. Before Lomkeet's squad, a group of guards was shouting desperately, trying to protect the town of Mio. They were risking their lives attacking the Griffin Chanter. Don't go over there. This is the boss fight cutscene. You have to wait for it to finish before you can enter the battle, Rick warned. He calculated that in just a few seconds, those 3 NPCs would be smashed. Then the Griffin would enter a rest phase where its aggression and damage output would decrease. He signaled for everyone to wait, telling them they'd rush in on his command. However, Lomkeet had no interest in watching the rest of this animation. So he shouted, "Everyone stop and head back. Captain Lance of the Guards is waiting for you all." His actions left Rick's group stunned. These people weren't players. They were just NPCs intended to advance the plot. They were there to weaken the boss a bit. Yet LamKiet wasn't taking advantage of that. Instead, he told them to stop and sent them back to the city. But after the guards heard the name Lance, they actually stopped and followed LamKiet's instructions to leave. Explaining his actions, he said his way of fighting was to trigger the encounter directly. It was faster than waiting for the cutscene, but the price a player pays for, forcefully entering the scene, is that the enemy becomes much more aggressive, especially toward the characters who enter the battlefield first, and those people are usually warriors tasked with tanking. Is this guy an idiot? Why trigger the fight like that? One of the team members yelled. Rick immediately ordered the other three to ignore LamKiet and let him do as he pleased while he stayed far away from the boss's aggro range. He never intended to. Go down with the ship alongside them anyway. This time, LamKiet's action wasn't reckless stubbornness, but a calculated move he had to make. The world line had now changed, and quest directions could also shift. In this life, he is the one disrupting the world line, the butterfly changing destiny. So he had to be even more proactive. Watching LamKiet face the griffin head-on, the others naturally didn't think he could actually defeat him. Rick whispered to his subordinates, "We've tricked this scapegoat into scouting the moves. Now we wait for the boss to finish him off. Once that idiot enters his rest phase, we'll immediately rush in, finish him off, and take the first kill reward." He actually thinks his little plan is foolproof. But the guy next to him couldn't help but remind him, "Boss, the system is designed to split the rewards among all party members. He's going to take a share of the loot. We'll lose out on experience and rewards. I'm not giving him that chance." A cunning smile crept across Jack's face. Moments later, LamKiet received a notification that he had been kicked from the party, even though he was busy fighting. Griffin but LamKiet still had enough time to read the alert. He wasn't surprised or angry. It just confirmed his suspicions. Those low-life scumbags only wanted to lure someone here to die and soften up the boss, to make it easier for them to swoop in later. They figured a 5-man party would struggle with the Voidwalker Griffin, so a newbie level 1 player wouldn't stand a chance. But they calculated wrong, because LamKiet isn't some rookie. He's a warrior reborn from hell. Thinking this, he launched himself forward aggressively, confronting Griffin. His indestructible war god title wasn't just for show. Suddenly, the people watching from outside saw a massive explosion. Jack grew frantic, muttering, "Did I just hear that right? That explosion sounded like it tore the very air apart." The person they thought was just cannon fodder, LamKiet, was not only alive and kicking, but he didn't even seem overwhelmed by Griffin. LamKiet's eyes were burning with intensity, and the weapon in his hand, empowered by his Sword Oath talent, became even sharper. After a while, Griffin's health bar had already dropped by half. Even the mask on the boss's face had been cracked by LamKiet's strikes. Only now did the guys outside realize the situation was critical. Nothing was going according to their plan. Wait, it looks like they're in a fierce deadlock. Something's not right here. By the time they realized something was wrong, Griffin had already entered his second phase. Moving into this stage, the boss became even more ferocious, but LamKiet had already anticipated that. In fact, he was the one who wanted to push himself into the most dangerous situation possible. Seeing Griffin on the offensive, LamKiet stood perfectly still. The spectators outside became strangely nervous. Is he stupid? He's trying to tank a boss-level charged attack? He's a dead man. Get ready, it's our turn. Prepare yourself! Boom! The ground shook, and dust and debris filled the air. Visibility dropped instantly. It looked like Griffin's attack had landed, and everyone assumed that LamKiet would be meeting his maker after that blow. However, while it seemed impossible to them, it wasn't for LamKiet. He chose the warrior class, which they thought had no future, yet he created a miracle no one could have predicted. You guys don't understand. You don't even want to understand. In this world, not everyone is born with the luxury of choice, LamKiet whispered to himself. He stood in the center of the blast, tall and unmoving, having taken the full force of Griffin's attack. Yet he hadn't taken a single scratch. 5 years ago, in his past life, before the game servers even launched, LamKiet went to the store to buy a gaming helmet. The owner said the current price was just for standard peripheral equipment. Once you enter the game, the value of in-game classes would be determined by popularity. The wealthy could pick top-tier DPS classes. Those without money had no choice but to pick low-popularity support classes or tanky ones to act as meat shields. Back then, the warrior class was even free for a limited time. When the servers launched, that was the most logical choice for players looking to earn money through the game, and it was the only option for the penniless LamKiet at the time. As an ordinary citizen, he discovered a staggering truth right then and there. It was that the way to seize an opportunity is to actually give up all other choices. Just then, as the dust cleared, seeing Lamkiet use his weapon to block the boss's attack, the group outside could only mutter, "No way, that attack." A level 1 like him shouldn't have been able to block that at all. Yet Lamkiet actually did it, in both his past life and this one. By using the lowest resources with the highest intensity of effort in the most dangerous training environments, that was the best path for an ordinary person like him. And in this life, he was determined to seize this chance at rebirth and hold the sword in his hand, trusting it completely, just as he trusted himself. His enhanced grip talent allowed Lamkiet to hold his weapon firmly, enabling him to hold his sword horizontally and use it like a shield. That was how he was able to parry the enemy's attack head-on. After the failed attack, Griffin exposed an opening, and that was Lamkiet's moment to counterattack. He had given up every other chance just because he had no other options, and whatever remained in front of him was the only real opportunity. So what if the boss is as powerful as a god? Even the gods themselves will have to die by your hands. I must become the strongest. That was the only intense thought running through Lamkiet's mind right now. Wielding his sword, Lamkiet shouted in a deadly voice, "Go to hell, Griffin!" The two of them refused to back down, lunging at each other with terrifying power. But with sharp determination and immense strength, Lamkiet overpowered his opponent. Watching his rival fall, Lamkiet glanced at the system notification. "You have successfully defeated the chant singer Griffin." But before he could celebrate, Lamkiet's body gave out and he collapsed to his knees, wiping blood from the corner of his mouth with his hand. Lamkiet let out a quiet sigh. With his current physical condition, resisting the boss's powerful attacks was a bit of a stretch. He forced himself to stand, thinking, maybe I got lucky. As a warrior with superior health, he still had a sliver of HP left. The system reminded him defeating the level 5 boss chant singer Griffin yields rewards. Experience increased to 500%. 2,350 experience points gained. Reached level 2. The system interface displayed his information: name, Lamkiet, level 2. Race, human class warrior title, none. Health, 145. ID none. Rage 0. Must be over 100 to unlock skills. Attack power 13 to 17. Equipment, Sword of the Terror. Fiend, Magic Defense. 1. Base stats strength, 8 plus 1. Agility 7. Intelligence 1. Spirit 1. Willpower 3. Rick looked at this scene in complete shock. He stammered, "Wait, did I see that wrong?" Rick was skeptical. It seems like the Griffin's second phase was ended before it even started. Ignoring the chatter, the system continued to update. Time-limited quest completed. Congratulations on becoming the first player in the Divine Realm to defeat the chant singer Griffin. Your reputation in Mayo Town has increased by 200. Your reputation in Mayo Town has reached the worship level over 300 points. As soon as the system finished announcing, a light shone brightly from the Griffin's chest. Rick said with a voice full of jealousy, "Damn it, that guy definitely won. He won unfairly." He couldn't accept it, so he ordered, "You guys hurry up and go pick up the loot on the ground for me since we joined in without engaging in combat. We can still get most of the loot." Hack immediately reached out to grab the loot, but he started trembling and said, "Boss, I can't pick this up. The system is giving me a warning. You do not have the authorization to collect it." Even after seeing the warning, Hack was unwilling to give up. "What do you mean, no authorization? Why the hell can't I pick it up?" At this moment, Rick realized the problem. Since the chant singer Griffin was defeated by Lamkiet alone, and he had just kicked Lamkiet out of the team, he clutched his head and shouted, "The rewards have nothing to do with us!" Damn it! Suddenly, a golden bell appeared. The system displayed information: Golden Bell of the Chant Singer Griffin, legendary heirloom. When used, it emits an extremely loud sound. Grants the Golden Bell's protective effect can block one powerful attack. The shattering sound of the Golden Bell can knock back the attacker. Limit use once per day. Lamkiet looked at the bell and said, "I didn't expect the item dropped by the Griffin to be this small." He quickly reached his hand toward the bell. Lamkiet claimed his reward and collected it immediately. Streaks of light appeared all over his body. Along with that, gold coins were being pulled into him. Hack looked at the gold coins in his hand flying toward Lamkiet on their own, and he couldn't help but exclaim, "What the?" Hack, frustrated, cursed loudly. Damn it! The loot is clearly ours. Why does he get to take it all for himself? Rick raised his hand slightly and said, Calm down, Hack. Even if he took the loot, it doesn't matter. He curled his lip and said, According to the treasure-hunting mechanics of this era, if a player dies, they will drop all items collected within the last 24 hours. Which means if we rush in and kill him now... Rick quietly calculated the result. All the rewards will belong to us. Hack was still worried. But boss, this warrior took down the griffin all by himself. His strength is incredibly terrifying. A triette standing nearby spoke up. What are you afraid of? This guy just took heavy damage. His health is at only 3%. As he said that, he narrowed his eyes. The system notified, Eagle Eye activated. A triette stroked his chin and said, Just one powerful attack is enough to kill this guy. Rick picked up his blade and said, Brothers, activate PvP mode today. Lamkiet entered the dungeon, but he's not making it out alive. The group then quickly walked toward Lamkiet, while he still stood there calmly. Lamkiet was still calculating. Killing one boss got me 100 copper coins, not counting the huge amount of alchemy materials. Lamkiet looked at the copper coins he had in the system and said, Currently 1 copper coin is worth 12,000 Vietnamese dong. So this haul is worth over 2 million Vietnamese dong. The auction house, 12,000. Today I made a fortune. Rick stood behind Lamkiet and mocked him. Congratulations, you fool. You've proven you have a bit of skill now. Lamkiet turned his head and said, You betrayed our cooperation and kicked me out of the team on your own. It's too late for apologies. Rick waved his fingers and said, We trusted your strength, so we didn't interfere. Look, sure enough, you succeeded in the level 5 difficulty quest alone. Very impressive. Rick, his face full of schemes, said, This credit more or less has to have some of our input right. Immediately, a red notification board appeared. The system warned, You have been struck with a critical wound. Lamkiet coughed up blood. The system reminded him before returning to the safe zone, Your maximum health is temporarily reduced by 90% and all attributes are cut in half. Rick said triumphantly, We knew your situation. It ends here. He narrowed his eyes in an unfriendly manner and reminded him, Remember well, the people you're dealing with are the notorious Evil Jack group. Our principles are... Then Jack revealed his true nature. We kill monsters and we kill people. We cooperate, then we betray. A triette standing behind him drew his bow. Jack laughed triumphantly and said, And you, Lamkiet. He pointed his finger at Lamkiet and said, Time to cough up everything. Lamkiet stood calmly watching the glowing arrow whiz past his ear. He thought, That's the hunter's eagle eye skill. Seeing the arrow pin into the pillar behind him, Lamkiet guessed, It can significantly improve accuracy, making it almost certain to hit targets in open areas. He had intentionally missed that arrow. Without beating around the bush, he looked at the group and asked bluntly, What's the meaning of this? Rick said generously. It's simple. Not just all the loot from the chant singer. Griffin, but also the wooden staff in your hand, and even the clothes you're wearing, take it all off and give it to me. He pointed at Lamkiet arrogantly, saying, And if you kneel and beg for mercy, we won't kill you. Rick was both arrogant and vicious. He said, But I want you to leave here completely naked. To make everyone see how utterly humiliated you are. He acted like a madman, laughing out loud while saying, A naked warrior, a pathetic, penniless nobody who thinks luck is all he needs. Hitting the boss's weak point to climb the ranks. In reality, you're still just a stupid dog from the bottom of society trying to crawl your way up. Lamkiet listened to him as if hearing a bad joke. He let out a soft scoff and said, Since it's come to this. Lamkiet raised his weapon high and shouted, Of course I refuse! Looking at Rick's face, Lamkiet said, You're nothing more than a pebble on the road. Helping me become stronger? I won't hesitate to step on you and keep moving forward. He provoked them. I won't even care when or where you appeared under my feet. Lamkiet wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and arrogantly said, If you've got the guts, then come and kill me, Rick. I'm begging you to try. Rick fought back, retorting, Refuse good, then refuse. He ordered a triette behind him to draw his bow and kill him. The system announced Eagle Eye activated. Lamkiet immediately brought out the golden bell he had just received. The bell emitted countless rays of intense pink energy, and a massive explosion occurred right there. No one was prepared. After the thick dust and smoke finally cleared, Rick's group was able to see. He cursed. Damn it! This is the legendary item dropped by the Griffin Sea. Hack then asked confused, The golden bell. What does it do? Does it make him invincible? Lomkeet stood inside the golden bell and replied, "Of course it's not invincibility. It just buys me 1 second of rest." Hack sneered. "What good is 1 second? What's the difference between dying early or dying late?" Lomkeet smirked and said, "Because upgrading skills takes time." After 1 second, he stepped out of the golden bell. Lomkeet declared, "Now I'll crush you 3 bastards." The system notified him, level 2 reached, free skill points available, using 1 free skill point. He learned the exclusive warrior skill, Death's Breath. When a warrior is in a critical situation, the body activates Death's Breath to recover a small amount of health. For now, if the user is near death or surrounded by enemies, this skill will recover a massive amount of health. He thought to himself. In his heart, Lomkeet confirmed it. It can even surpass the life limit of a warrior. Atriet panicked. "This guy's health is completely recovered. How did he do that? He even broke the restriction of his injuries," Lomkeet said with a deathly gaze. "Power from hell. Do you want to get a taste of it?" Mikey shouted a warning. "Don't let him scare you. His sword is still stuck in the ground. Now's our chance." They charged. Lomkeet didn't say another word. His eyes flashed and he lunged forward like an arrow. Rick was stunned by this speed. He wondered, "Is this even him?" Lomkeet dashed forward and punched Atriet in the face. While Rick hadn't even finished his sentence, "What the—" The speed was too fast for them to react. They only saw an explosion where Atriet had been standing. Hack and Mikey widened their eyes. They couldn't help but exclaim, "So fast!" They were terrified. He only used his fist. Atriet died from a single punch. The system displayed fist strength increased. When not using weapons, you receive the unarmed combat skill buff. Rick saw things going south and ordered Mikey, "Use the ice explosion technique to pin him down." Mikey replied, "Got it." Mikey quickly cast the ice explosion. The system alerted, frozen in place, unable to move. At that moment, Hack raised his blade and flew up, wanting to take the opportunity to sneak attack. "I've been sick of you for a long time. This ice crystal will be your tomb die." But Lomkeet quickly shifted his body and dodged. The system announced, "Strength check passed. Escape the grip of the ice crystals." He raised his fist. His eyes were wide and filled with deathly intent. Lomkeet threw a punch, sending Hack flying far away. He let out a scream of pure agony. Mikey couldn't believe it. This was illogical. My ice storm couldn't control him. Lomkeet turned to him and calmly replied, "As long as you have enough strength, you can use raw power to break through magic bindings. Ice at this level is just a minor nuisance to me." Mikey was incredibly shocked and couldn't comprehend it. "Your attribute stats were clearly halved due to serious injuries, so how is your strength stat still enough?" In his mind, he kept denying it. No, this isn't right. Looking at the battle aura surrounding him, Mikey was anxious. No matter how I look at it, it doesn't look like his stats are reduced. He turned and screamed, "Atriet, hurry, use your eagle eye to check his stats." But before he knew it, Lomkeet had arrived right beside him. He grabbed Mikey's hand and said, "No need for that," Lomkeet kindly reminded him. "That hunter. Didn't I just take him down with 1 punch earlier? Did you forget?" Only then did Mikey realize in horror, Atriet. "No, that's not right. Overcome with shame and rage." Mikey yelled at Lomkeet, "Cheater, that's it, you definitely cheated." Lomkeet's eyes widened, but Mikey kept screaming, "You're a cheater!" In Lomkeet's mind, the word cheater echoed repeatedly. He remembered Bok Lee's accusations. "You dare to use a cheating weapon? Why must you treat me like this?" The verdict from Bok Lee back then rang out, "It's useless to say anything now. You have already lost." Lomkeet shouted, "Only by abandoning everything you believe in can one choose a path of no return, and I will absolutely never go down that road." He seemed to lose his composure as he yanked Mikey's arm hard and cursed, "You bastards, you can't beat me, so all you know how to do is slander others as cheaters." Mikey was trembling. He screamed in a begging voice, You're way too strong. I surrender, okay? Don't kill me, I'll leave Red's evil squad right now," but Lomkeet didn't let up. Too late. System alert. Strength enhancement activated. With one swing, he sent Mikey flying. A massive explosion erupted right where he landed, and as the dust settled, there stood Lomkeet, a towering silhouette. Just then a voice echoed from behind, "Interesting. You just threw away your last advantage with your own hands." "Your class is a warrior," Rick said with a sneer. "I know full well you used your class perks to pull off that impossible stunt. So what?" He gripped his blade tightly and declared, "I can unleash incredible power even in the worst situations, especially when surrounded by a horde of enemies." System Alert Warrior trait, Desperate Battle activated. When surrounded, all stats are significantly boosted. Condition must be surrounded by at least 3 enemies. Rick spoke slowly. The Desperate Battle state requires at least 3 enemies to activate. Now that it's just you alone, that buff is useless. Your tricks end here. Lomkeet didn't panic, replying, "Fair enough. Then I'll send you back to the respawn point with 1 clean, honorable strike." Rick countered with a boost of his own, dismissively saying, "It seems you still don't get the situation. I am an assassin. That's a dedicated player-killing class built for overpowering one-on-one combat. Now that I clearly have the advantage, you're as good as dead." Rick shouted smugly toward Lomkeet, "Now I'm going to take that dog life of yours." He lunged forward with explosive speed and power. Lomkeet studied his opponent mentally, analyzing the situation. The assassin's special class ability is exploiting weak points. Each strike landed adds a debuff stack. Let's see. Lomkeet calculated his own status. The most dangerous one is a headshot that's a blindness debuff causing all subsequent attacks to miss. If your arm gets hit, you get a disarm debuff. If your torso gets hit, it's a bleed debuff, and a leg hit means a crippling debuff. He knew that once he got hit, he'd be overwhelmed by stacking debuffs. Rick slashed repeatedly, but Lomkeet dodged everything. Your movement is actually not bad at all. Even with such a cumbersome sword, his speed was keeping up. Rick realized the gravity of the situation. He scoffed. However, close combat is my turf. 1 hit from an assassin is all it takes to leave you stunned while those debuffs pile up endlessly. Rick's face twisted into a deadly mask. It's useless. You'll be begging me for a painless death before long. But Lomkeet wasn't rattled. He suddenly realized something. Seizing an opening, Lomkeet knocked Rick's sword away, creating distance. Rick stumbled back, stunned. Even with his stats cut in half. And that destructive power is still terrifying. The warrior's innate raw strength advantage really couldn't be ignored. But he quickly calmed himself. No matter if this drags on, he's dead. Lomkeet's eyes flashed as he snapped, "Who has time for a long fight, you idiot?" He darted forward with agile grace, closing in on Rick. Alone against the respawn stone, regret it. Rick's eyes went wide, unable to react to Lomkeet's speed. Crap! He found himself standing naked back at the respawn point. In his mind, he was still processing it. Rick stood there blank-faced. Did I just respawn? System alert. You have been killed by the warrior Lomkeet. Penalty applied. Level dropped from 3 to 2. All stats reduced. He heard familiar laughter behind him. Rick panicked. "What is the meaning of this?" he shouted, fuming. "Are you mocking me?" A Triad whispered. "Boss, your clothes and gear, they've been taken." A notification appeared. Era Treasure Theft Rule. When a player dies, they drop all items looted within the last 24 hours. A Triad screamed, "It definitely hasn't been 24 hours yet." Mikey was even more shocked. "What?" Rick roared. "Damn it, Lomkeet, you dare humiliate me in front of everyone. Just you wait, we aren't done yet. Not by a long shot." Lomkeet just said, "This strike was just to see you off." "Why am I stripped of all my clothes?" Hack woke up, rubbing his head. "That hurt. Thank goodness I put all my points into defense, otherwise I would have been sent back to the city. In just 1 hit. Where did everyone go?" Then he saw Lomkeet standing there alone. Hack was frozen in terror. He clutched his blade, trembling violently. "Lomkeet, don't come any closer. Stay back or I'll stab you." But Lomkeet just said politely, "Take Rick's clothes back to him." Lomkeet added, standing behind him, "And pass on a message if I ever run into you guys again." A chilling, murderous aura radiated from him. "I will hunt you until you're back to level 0. Hack was shaking like a leaf. He turned around hastily and stammered, Understood. But his eyes went wide. He trembled even harder, clearly terrified. His face contorted, his mouth clamped shut as if holding back something. Hack frantically covered his mouth with both hands, looking like he was about to vomit. And sure enough, he collapsed to his knees, coughing up blood. Hack wheezed, shaking as he turned away. What kind of terrifying power is this? It can't even be measured in stats anymore. This oppressive power. It's like facing the Grim Reaper himself." Looking at the fiery aura surrounding Lomkeet, Hack whispered in awe, "It's like a god of war returned from hell." System. Commendable courage in fighting against malicious players. You have gained massive reputation in Meow Town. Reputation plus 300. Your reputation in Meow Town has reached the follower level 600. System. Congratulations. You have attained legendary status in Meow Town. NPCs will voluntarily follow you within the town. A statue will be erected in your honor, granting you exclusive privileges. Lomkeet frowned, thinking, though it's unfortunate to be betrayed by teammates, gaining this reputation isn't half bad. Time to head back to the city for a break. Eventually, Lomkeet returned to the city. His subordinates knelt in unison to welcome him back. He was caught completely off guard, wondering what was going on. Everyone shouted in unison, "Please accept the highest ceremony of Meow Town, Lord Dobrez, the one who created the miracle." The system also sent a notification, "Congratulations, you have received the title Dawnblade." The group of players standing nearby wondered, what's going on? Why are the NPCs suddenly bowing to a player? What is Dobrez? Is it some kind of special title? A blue-haired player asked, "Could it be a feature that only unlocks with a platinum VIP privilege? How much money would that cost?" The person next to him retorted, "No way. How could a bottom-tier warrior the kind even stray dogs wouldn't bother with afford a platinum VIP membership card?" Lomkeet also quietly wondered to himself, "Dobre, this title. I've heard of it before in a previous life in a dungeon." He recalled 3 years ago when the world was plunged into an eternal night era. In a place where monsters ran rampant, the flame of civilization was flickering on the verge of being extinguished. Just then a legendary warrior stepped forward. Holding a weapon that looked deceptively simple, he was somehow able to ignite the darkness. The first ray of dawn. That greatsword became a symbol that tore through the night. Then Lomkeet looked at the equipment in the system and said, "Engage battle." The decision in the darkest hour before dawn finally brought light to the world, and the result was a silhouette of an unknown warrior stood on a cliff surrounded by morning light, glittering like gold, holding a sword burning bright under the dawn. So Dobrez is bestowed upon the brave who dare to stand against evil. Lomkeet thought, this is one of the 8 most hyped legendary titles. Before the launch, every story represented an epic hero from the world's history. I suspect the government implied these titles weren't just simple background lore. It's highly likely it's a secret achievement or a massive honorary reward, but I've never heard of anyone actually getting it before. Lomkeet smirked with satisfaction. Dobrez one of the 8 legendary titles. To think a newbie like me actually managed to snag it in Meow Town. The NPC shouted, "Welcome back, Lord Dobrez." Lomkeet thought happily, what an unexpected harvest. Inside the town hall, a voice rang out, "Lord Dobrez, your righteous actions have moved and touched all the villagers." A soldier knelt before Lomkeet and said, "Mayor Oliver Green wishes to personally host a banquet to welcome you." System notification. Subquest Heroes Welcome in Meow Town unlocked. Proceed to the Meow Town Council Hall. The soldier bowed earnestly. "Please let me personally lead the way." Lomkeet smiled and said, "No need, I'll go there myself. Everyone just stay where you are." He quietly understood that being too flashy would definitely attract malicious players. It was better to keep a low profile. Lomkeet was right. In the shadows, a disgruntled voice spoke up, "What malicious?" Rick, full of malice, said, "Lomkeet, just wait until you get to some back alley. I'm going to stab you in the back." Mikey stood behind him and advised, "Boss, maybe don't go against him after all the NPCs in this whole town are bowing to him. We should probably just leave." Rick shook with anger, gritting his teeth. "Mikey, what do you know? Infamy is still fame. As long as we can kill him, other malicious players will respect us." "Boss," one asked, surprised, "have you figured out a way to make him lose?" Rick said calculatingly. "If we were outside, my word wouldn't mean much. But here in Meow Town, Rick the villain has more sway than anyone." The NPCs saw Rick holding a weapon and angrily warned him, "The Meow Town celebration is approaching. Gathering and carrying weapons is forbidden." Rick gave a sheepish laugh and said, "We're just negotiating a trade. Why do you NPCs have to manage everything? Are you not going to let people play?" The soldier warned, "We will keep a special eye on players with bad intentions. You have a criminal record. Be well behaved in town." Rick gritted his teeth. "Even Meow Town has a dark side." His voice still echoed with resentment. "Just you wait." Ignoring Rick's group, Lomkeet reached his destination, the town office, Mayor Green's area. Just as Lomkeet opened the door, a voice echoed from within. "Lord Dobrez," Mayor Green said happily to Lomkeet, "you finally arrived." He joyfully shook Lamkiat's hand and said, "Thanks to you, the threat that has hung over us for years, the nightmare griffin has been completely wiped out." Mayor Green continued to heap praise upon him. "Your noble deed didn't just save the town. It saved countless lives that would have otherwise been sacrificed. This is an achievement worthy of being recorded in history books." Lamkiat felt a bit embarrassed. "Oh, this," he thought to himself. In my previous life, Mayor Green was a stern NPC who rarely smiled, probably because he was exhausted from years of dealing with the monster attacks, leaving him mentally drained. Lamkiat sighed. But in this timeline, his complexion looked much better, and his personality had changed too. He humbly said, "It was just my duty, Mayor Green." He opened the curtains and looked outside, saying, "To engrave your courage and kindness in our hearts, I, on behalf of all the townspeople, formally propose—" He then added with great excitement, "We will erect a hero statue of you in the central square. I suggest using gold, so that everyone who comes to Meow Town will know of your legend." Mayor Green didn't see the helpless expression on Lamkiat's face and continued proudly, "To feel the heroic spirit of Dobras." Lamkiat waited for him to finish before humbly declining. "I appreciate the gesture, Mayor, but for me that's just empty fame. The other players wouldn't—" Because the sudden appearance of a statue in the town had changed everything. Lamkiat looked toward Mayor Green and continued, "I have a proposal. What do you think?" He wasn't angry at all about being rejected. Instead, he replied cheerfully, "Whatever you need, Lord Dobrit, gold, silver, or anything else you deem worthy of your great service, just name it." Lamkiat looked down at the people standing below and said, "The threat from Griffin has been eliminated. The money and military supplies that Meow Town had prepared to deal with him and should have been used for more practical things that could benefit everyone. I believe using these funds for two purposes would be better. First, implement a long-term tax cut for adventurers at trading posts within the town, thereby reducing development costs for newcomers and transforming the town, Meow Town, into a friendly, vibrant starting point for all adventurers." Mayor Green broke into a bit of a sweat as he listened to Lamkiat's request. Then he heard him add, "Second, strengthen security and patrols throughout the town and city to ensure such threats don't recur, and to guarantee that the residents and visitors can live in safety." Deep down, he silently sized me up, thinking that while he had met countless adventurers chasing fame and power, he had never met anyone who cared about the other players like this. Mayor Green adjusted his glasses and said calmly, "My lord, your kindness and vision have left me both awestruck and humbled. Then let it be as you say. I shall issue the order immediately." A massive system panel appeared. Every player saw the notification, "Town-wide announcement. All transactions in Meow Town will be permanently discounted by 50% on taxes starting today, to welcome and support the journey of all new adventurers." Following the announcement came countless shouts of surprise. 50% off? Is this real? Who is this fairy godmother? Which great lord is it? It must have cost a fortune. No need to worry about not being able to afford potions anymore. Thank you, Big Boss. Long live Meow Town. Mayor Green, trembling with joy, looked at the results and said with gratitude, "My lord, you have truly brought the dawn to this little town. Your character has won my complete respect." He pulled out a key and said to Linjie, "As a personal token of my gratitude, please accept this gift." Mayor Green explained to him, "This is a 2-story building that has been abandoned for a long time on the outskirts of town. It's modest, but it's in a quiet location with a view of the windmills and the fields. This bronze key and the land title deed now belong to you forever. Please accept it," Mayor Green said sincerely. "On behalf of the town, I cordially invite you to settle down in Meow Town, a real home." Immediately, the system notified, "Congratulations, you have become the first player to receive a private property in the era." The system displayed the contents, "A place overlooking the windmills. Your legendary status in this town has been carved into history." Linji's eyes widened as he saw the notification. Land ownership in Era Linji knew very well that this used to be an unattainable privilege. To explain the privilege, this was controlled by a smart AI capable of evolving on its own. The game's realism was almost like a second world. The scarcity of land was its core rule, the very essence of this world. It wasn't like other games. Wealthy players couldn't just throw money around to own an entire commercial street or even buy the game to make NPCs serve them. The truth was, in the vast world of Era, every inch of land had an owner, either the system-run cities, or in this world there were primitive tribes, or dens occupied by extremely powerful monsters. The operating mechanism was that players could only possess temporary usage rights to an area, renting a stall or a workshop. The truth was, even if a guild spent a massive amount of resources and reputation, they could only secure a limited territory, and could lose control of it at any moment due to failed defenses or the system reclaiming it. Lin Jie looked at the key in front of him and thought, owning a private space that belongs entirely to me. This is truly a massive, unimaginable advantage in the early game, whether it's for storing items, researching skills, or expanding functions in the future. Both are very important. He decided to take the key and said, "Thank you, Mayor Green. I really like this gift." Mayor Green happily replied, "You are willing to lower yourself to live here." It was even more exciting and moving than the golden statue in the central square. The system flashed unlocked instant teleportation function within town limits, unlocked one-click equipment repair within town limits, unlocked remote auction function. Due to your noble character and selfless contributions, all spending in this place will permanently receive an additional 15% hidden discount. Following that was a blessing. May the dawn forever shine upon you and protect you. After the negotiations, Lin Jie said goodbye to Mayor Green and walked through the crowd. He thought to himself, the mayor gave me a discount, now I'll head to the market to pick up some supplies. As he brushed past a person in a red cloak, the system warned, target used skill pickpocket agility check successful. Lin Jie glanced at the red warning, lost 100 copper coins. The person holding Lin Jie's coin purse gloated, got it. Lin Jie hurriedly grabbed that person's shoulder and shouted, give it back. But the person vanished. All Lin Jie grabbed was the red cloak. He was furious and cursed, what the hell, robbery in broad daylight? This Mio town needs to increase investment in security. He decided he would not let the thief escape. He chased with all his speed. Stop right there. In a dead-end alley, a long-haired girl stood panting, and Lin Jie's silhouette loomed over her. He looked at her back and said, don't bother running. It's a dead end. Xiaolian turned around and said, that's what I should be saying to you. The system introduced Xiaolian of the Dark Alley Level 6 Elite Rogue. Lin Jie recalled 4 familiar shadows. Around him, voices echoed, Elite Rogue Level 5. Lin Jie cracked his knuckles and said, almost forgot that Mio Town has a dark side people don't know about. The Mistress of the Dark Alley. Xiaolian smirked and said, this kid has decent intel. Are you an internal tester? Lin Jie remembered his past life. He hadn't just been robbed by the NPCs of the Dark Alley. This trick was all too familiar. Xiaolian sat on a wooden crate and explained, simply put, someone paid to buy your life. You have to die. Lin Jie analyzed, so far I've only offended 2 people, the Holy Knight Balai and the assassin from the Evil League, Jack. He asked Xiaolian, tell me who wants me dead. She didn't answer, but looked at Lin Jie with contempt. You should know. Master Dobret, do you want me to spell it out? Lin Jie chuckled. Right, that guy wouldn't dare face me directly. He just dares to hire assassins for revenge. Xiaolian tossed her hair and said, I'm just an NPC doing a job. Grudges between players have nothing to do with me. She licked her lips, looked at Lin Jie with dead eyes, and said, kill him. People with weapons appeared behind her and rushed to attack Lin Jie. They were incredibly aggressive, throwing their lives away to get the job done, and their target was him. In the alleyway, a skirmish broke out. Dust and debris flew everywhere. You couldn't see who was who. Lin Jie held his sword. Surrounding him were fragments of bodies dissolving. Xiaolian sat there unexpectedly clapping in praise. Little brother, you're good. Lin Jie glanced at her and without any politeness asked, any more? Lamkeet shot her a glance and without any hesitation demanded, got any more? Xiaolian jumped down and said, all right, this is a losing business. Not only did we mess up, but we didn't even make enough to cover the medical expenses for these useless losers. She waved her hand and told them, get lost. Even if they all rushed at him together, they were no match for Lord Dobrez. The NPCs ran away, saying, yes, big sister. Xiaolian held her head in frustration, thinking, in this business you've got to calculate the costs. She hoisted her weapon onto her shoulder, glided past Lamkeet and said, that's how I'll answer Rick. Xiaolian from Darkshade Cliff tried her best, but the opponent was too tough, so she had to give up halfway. Hearing her say that, veins popped out on Lamkeet's forehead. Xiaolian even provoked him, bye for now, little brother Dobrez. Next time you come to Darkshade Cliff to drink, just say my name. You looked at the back of the woman in front of you and said angrily, wait! Hearing Lamkeet call out, Xiaolian turned her head and asked, I let you off and you're still not satisfied. Lamkiat raised his hand and demanded his belongings back. Give me back my money pouch. She acted unreasonable, holding his pouch and saying, I was going to show mercy and give you a way out, but now you dare to haggle with me. Haleen replied with a cold, murderous look. This is the fee for sparing your life, you idiot. Hearing those unreasonable words, you were incredibly furious. I earned my money based on my own skills. Your whole body erupted with terrifying power as you said, if you want my stuff, you'll have to earn it with your own strength. Hearing that Haleen didn't hold back either, saying, very well then. Your rewards and the money on you will all belong to me. The two of them charged at each other aggressively, not knowing what the outcome would be. Looking at their momentum, neither side was losing, but in terms of pure strength, would Haleen be able to defeat Lamkeet? Halayan's weapon had slashed the sword in Lamkeet's hand. She even blatantly provoked him, that's what happens when you break your weapon. Lamkeet felt skeptical. That's not right. My memories of Dark Shade. Cliff from my past life were just that of a regular NPC at the black market. Haleen said, out of respect for that handsome face of yours. Do you need me to lend you some money so you can go to the blacksmith and buy a new one? Lamkeet didn't answer. He kept wondering to himself, why has it become so dramatic now? Lamkeet's face sank into the shadows as he slowly said, even if I'm empty-handed. He clenched his fists and continued, I still won't let you guys get away with this. Haleen closed one eye, smirked, and dragged out her tone to taunt him. Such an old trick. She slammed her sword into the ground. But Big Sister is in a good mood today, so I might play a few rounds with you. Haleen shouted, ordering her gang brothers give him the Dark Shade welcome ritual. The minions excitedly shouted, Big Sister is invincible. Big Sister is invincible. They cheered with great momentum. Come on, Big Sister is invincible. Lamkeet stood before the circle of cheers. Big Sister is invincible. She didn't wait any longer and lunged like a shot, raising her claws to attack him. Lamkeet immediately dodged to the side while simultaneously mocking her too slow. You glanced at the 2 strands of hair that had been sliced off by her claws. Haleen leaped high into the air and shouted, How about this little brother? She delivered a kick from midair aimed straight at Lamkeet's head. You broke into a sweat, gritted your teeth, and thought to yourself, this girl. Lamkeet immediately used his bare hands to block Haleen's attack. She landed gracefully. After a few exchanges, Haleen thought to herself in admiration, You really are strong. Your eyes were cold and sharp. You clenched your 2 fists and lunged rapidly toward her. Haleen also quickly unleashed a move. Both flew into midair, throwing punches at each other. How do you like this punch? After landing, she threw a kick toward Lamkeet, but he jumped and dodged it. Haleen couldn't help but feel a bit regretful. Oh, so close. Not bad reflexes, kid. Haleen continued to throw another punch at you. How about this one? Out. Lamkeet immediately gripped her wrist tight with a fierce look in his eyes. Seeing this, Haleen broke into a sweat, shocked eyes wide open. She immediately pulled her gripped arm away. In a flash, you threw a powerful punch at Haleen, but she leaned backward to avoid it. We should stop here. The wall that Lamkeet's punch had slammed into was cracked significantly. Haleen smirked and said, Interesting. Without a blade, I really can't take you down in an instant. You clenched your fists, frowned, and asked, Continuing like this, do you think it's worth it? Soon the losses you'll suffer will be even greater than what you've earned. She heard this, opened her eyes wide, and was stunned for a moment. Haleen then burst into loud laughter. Damn, this guy is interesting! She summoned the money pouch, laughing as she said, Forget it, I've lost interest. Haleen threw the money pouch toward Lamkeet. Fighting to the end just for this pouch is a waste of my time. Immediately after she turned her back and left, brothers. Let's go. See you later, little brother. You looked at Haleen's retreating figure, puzzled, and muttered, What a strange woman. Lamkeet opened the money pouch and secretly wondered, Was it an illusion? Why does it feel heavier than before? You unexpectedly touched something else, not a coin. This is... Lamkeet stared blankly at the eye in his palm. What is this? What the... A notification from the system appeared. Item received from Haleen of Dark Shade Cliff. The screen displayed her message. A gift for our first meeting. Don't be shy. Hope we have a pleasant cooperation in the future, Lord Dobrez. You stared at the object, confused. Cooperation, a meeting gift. What the hell is this? Lamkeet applied force to the eye with his fingers, and cracks instantly appeared on it. Suddenly, a violent surge of energy erupted from his left eye, causing him to clutch it and collapse to his knees. "It burns." The system chimed, "Received divine legacy eye of truth." An eyeball of unknown origin seemingly deeply tied to an ancient conspiracy and mystery. Some time ago, this item was gifted to you by Xia Lian, the master of the Shadow Cliff, in a very special way. Upon use, it grants you the ability to see through illusions and perceive the truth. He panted, whispering to himself, "A pleasant cooperation, huh? Who would have thought I'd get such an unexpected harvest? I've never even heard of this item before." Lomkeet smiled with interest. "It seems this era life is way more fun than I remember." Scene transition to the next morning at a crowded market. As he walked, he scanned his surroundings, wondering, "I wonder if I can find anything good here." Lomkeet's attention was caught by a vendor shouting, "Black stones for sale! 1 copper coin a pile, take your pick, take your pick!" He stared at the items, lost in thought. Standing before 2 crates of black stones, he pondered, "Black stone is the most common basic mineral in Era, the kind that hordes of players mindlessly mine to farm mana crystals, collapsing countless caves in the process." With that thought, he turned around, ready to leave. This stuff is piled up like mountains in players' inventories. Buying it would just take up space. It's total junk. Nobody would take it even for free. Suddenly, the system pinged, Eye of Truth activated. A gleam flashed in Lomkeet's eyes. It activated on its own. His gaze locked onto one specific stone in the pile. "Wait, that thing." Lomkeet stared at the stone, thinking, "This doesn't look like the others." As soon as he picked it up, the system notified him, Eye of Truth appraisal successful. Starlight stone discovered. Lomkeet grew excited and cursed under his breath. Damn, the Eye of Truth is this powerful. Finding treasure just by strolling around. Lomkeet flicked a copper coin to the vendor, thinking, "Whatever, I'll take it first and study it later." He pointed at the stone. "Is this one for sale?" The middle-aged man replied immediately, "Selling. Of course I'm selling." He happily handed over the stone with both hands, praising, "Boss, you sure have a sharp eye for quality." But inwardly he sneered, "What a sucker." He laughed to himself. "I actually sold this useless rock for a copper coin. Today is my lucky day." Lomkeet smiled and squeezed his fist. The stone in his palm crumbled into dust. He opened his hand, whispering in admiration, "Flawless starlight stone. That layer of black stone on the surface was just a perfect disguise." Perfect. Completely undetectable by standard appraisal techniques. Lomkeet admired the starlight stone under the light. No wonder it was hidden away in that heap of trash. If I sold this gem directly to an NPC, it'd be worth over 100 copper coins. He stared at the stone, lost in thought. But as far as I know, the starlight stone has another special function. The powder obtained from breaking down the starlight stone can be used as a special ingredient in alchemy to maximize the value of this stone. Maybe I should try alchemy. In the world of Era, players have the freedom to choose their professions, and many even choose life classes, like tailor, blacksmith, or jeweler as their main profession. These classes have a low barrier to entry and feel like extensions of real life. They are great for relaxation after battles, so most players dabble in them. However, one life profession is the exception. Not only is it difficult to learn and expensive, but the process is also dangerous. An explosion from a failed alchemy attempt can kill a player instantly. You have killed yourself. This is the alchemist and its curse. Lomkeet opened the system menu, whispering to himself, "Let's see the current value of alchemy items. Medium healing potion, 10 copper coins, and it's limited to 1 bottle per day." He frowned, calculating, if I follow the brewing methods the government published, the cost of these ingredients would be higher than the 1 copper coin sale price. Lomkeet stared at the price list. No matter how you look at it, it's a loss. He pondered. Not to mention, alchemists have to deal with a 60% failure rate. This makes the actual cost nearly double the official selling price. Lomkeet looked at a man shivering from the cold sitting on the ground selling potions. This is why most players can't get rich through alchemy, and in fact, the more they invest, the more they lose. He suddenly flashed a cunning grin. Since I've lived in the world of Era for 5 years, I know a few secret brewing methods. Lomkeet walked toward a general store. The problem is, even if I know the method, I can't brew it, because the most important ingredient for the merchant is the starlight stone powder. He thought while talking to the vendor. But the item I got when I met Xia Lian, he gave me the chance to make a killing. From a distance, two strangers were quietly tailing him. Japba pointed ahead and said, "Look, he's buying something again." Opta curled his lip indifferent. "Leave him be. We just need to buy whatever he buys. If he can make money, we can too." He held up a stone and grinned. "Besides, he has the god-tier reputation. He's definitely familiar with the system's economy. I saw him buy a black stone at the shop earlier, so I'm trying one too." Japba asked blankly. "Huh. That shopkeeper scammed me into buying a whole pile." The black stone vendor looked at the stone in his hand. He asked himself, bewildered, "Wait, did I sell this black stone too cheap?" Sitting on a chair, he scrolled through the system menu, buying enough medium glass bottles and cheap ingredients like green grass to brew 100 healing potions. That should be enough. The screen then displayed Starlight Stone Powder crafted. Opta asked curiously, "What, he crushed something?" Jarba turned to look at him and scolded, "You idiot, it must be the black stone he bought earlier. He's definitely trying to make some high-end goods. This black stone is the key ingredient." He smiled brightly. "Let's follow his lead." Opta sneered in agreement. Right. Both of them crushed their black stones at the same time. The system notified both obtained black stone powder. Lomkeet carefully added drops of grass leaf extract into the vial. Originally, the extract could only be processed into a basic herbal juice with weak effects. Then he continued by adding refined glowing stone powder. However, once catalyzed by the glowing stone powder, the herbal juice's potency was amplified many times over. Lomkeet stood up and walked toward the fountain in front, but it wasn't over yet. Japba asked blankly, "He seems to be heading toward the fountain. Could it be he's about to perform some high-level ritual?" Ada immediately replied, "That's right. Crafting high-end items definitely requires high-level rituals. A luxurious place like a fountain might be the perfect spot for such ceremonies." He watched Lomkeet's actions and stammered, "Wait, could it be—" Lomkeet held up the vial to collect water from the fountain. The other two stared in shock as the liquid in the vial swirled into a cool, fresh green color. The system announced, "Medium healing potion obtained." Lomkeet said with satisfaction, "Good. The effect is identical to the products sold in the shop." Both men watching him had the same thought. Dobret is crafting fake potions. The system notifications kept chiming. With the healing potion successfully crafted before long, Lomkeet had made 100 of them and reached a level of mastery in the field. Alchemy. Lomkeet wiped his sweat and smiled contentedly. "It seems my previous knowledge can be turned into assets." Seeing the healing potions placed on the ground, passers-by flocked over to ask, "Where did you get these potions? How much are they? Can you sell one to me? I've already used up my daily purchase limit. Can I buy a large quantity from you?" An hour later, he happily announced, "They're all gone, sold out." Those who arrived late couldn't help but feel sad. Lomkeet smiled and summoned his coin pouch. As long as they were a copper coin cheaper than the shop, they could sell out instantly, and he even sold a few at a higher price. He happily looked at the pouch full of coins, calculating roughly a capital of 100 copper coins had turned into 1,000 in just 1 hour. Lomkeet said with satisfaction, "The Griffin reward has now increased tenfold. I've made a killing today." Ada spoke up from afar, "We calculated wrong. Dobret is selling the real deal." He crossed his arms, smirking cunningly. His formula must have come from secret intelligence during the testing phase. If it were made public, it would be a huge blow to the entire business system of the era. Japba clenched his fists excitedly and said, "The two of us must make a fortune before the team officially fixes this loophole." The very next day, he started crafting potions, adding black stone powder and grass leaves into a vial and shaking it. Adding a little water? Alchemy really is as easy as pie. Ding. The system displayed crafted a vial of poison. Ada exclaimed in horror. "What?" Japba asked blankly. "Did I get the formula wrong?" "I watched every step very clearly, though." He held up the vial and stammered, "No, it's not wrong. This is a healing potion. The color is just off." "Don't say another word." Ada pointed at the vial and asked, "Then do you dare to drink it?" Immediately after, an explosion rang out. The system announced, "Player Japba has killed himself." The crowd gathered around, staring blankly. "What's wrong? What happened? Damn, did someone just self-destruct? Another lunatic." Lomkeet sighed, feeling annoyed. "If you don't understand the formula and try to craft it yourself, you'll be hit by the curse of alchemy. I can only wish them luck." Next time he smiled, tossed a coin, and silently calculated, "I need to log out to process the money I just made." Lomkeet held the coin pouch in his hand and smiled. After exchanging the rewards and logging out, he returned to the real world in an old dilapidated house. He took off his helmet and sighed in relief. At a rate of 1 copper coin to 110,000 yuan, I exchanged 50 copper coins on the trading site. Before logging out, his phone suddenly vibrated. The converted amount of 5 million has been added to your account. Lamkeet wore a satisfied smile. That was fast. Suddenly, a loud noise rang out from outside, forcing him to look back. 3 debt collectors were waiting to storm the house. Hey, it's time to pay this month's debt, you old hag. His mother explained blankly. No, isn't it supposed to be paid at the end of the month? It's only the beginning of the month. The ringleader cursed angrily. Damn it, I was supposed to wait until the end of the month, but I lost 1 million in the era game. Damn it, he said aggressively. Now if I don't get money from you two, I'm going to be in a very bad mood. She stammered in fear. Please forgive us. We don't have the money right now. Could you give us a few more days? He narrowed his eyes and repeated the question, no money. Immediately after, one of his henchmen tied up Titch and dragged her toward them. She lunged toward her daughter, calling out worriedly, Titch! But she was held back by the ringleader, who tightened his grip on her wrist. He put his hand on her shoulder and said in a cunning tone, Your daughter is at a beautiful age, isn't she? If it's her first time, it could fetch a good price. The ringleader suddenly looked up and asked, And where is your precious son? Don't tell me he's still hiding in the house playing games. What a loser! The 3 of them jeered. Why doesn't he get out and do some manual labor? At least his body parts could sell for a bit of money. Is that so? Lamkeet's voice rang out from behind. 1 million right. He had just finished operating his phone and held it up asking, Is this enough? The men laughed loudly, mocking. This guy is still pretending to be stupid here, still pretending to be a rich man. Then the phone in his pocket chimed. You have received 1 million yuan. The ringleader went blank and pulled out his phone to check. This is fake, right? The underling said in shock. Boss, maybe you should check that phone again. He stared at them coldly and repeated the question. Have you had enough? Titch gasped in shock. Brother, did you rob a bank, Mom? Lamkeet asked in surprise. Son, where did you get all that money? He spoke up. Wait a second. 2 underlings stared at the number on the phone in horror. 1, 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000. The leader looked at the amount and cursed, 1 million, damn it! The underling's eyes sparkled. It really is 1 million. He grabbed the lapel of his shirt. Kid, you're just a loser who only knows how to play games. How could you possibly have 1 million? Are you kidding me? Lamkeet waved his hand at his mother. Mom, go into your room. The leader shouted, unwilling to accept it. How the hell could you make 1 million? I want an explanation. He sneered mockingly. That's right, I'm just a useless gamer. Of course I can only make money from gaming. The leader gritted his teeth in fury. Are you screwing with me? I've been gaming, and I've even had to pay out money. Damn it, and you make 1 million? The leader pointed his knife at the number on the phone. This 1 million doesn't count as paying off the debt. Consider this compensation for my losses. Lamkeet's face darkened, and he asked coldly, Oh, you want to turn against me now? He instantly reached out and clamped his hand around the guy's wrist, causing the knife to drop to the floor. The leader broke into a cold sweat, eyes wide with terror, thinking to himself, What the? He's too fast! Lamkeet shot him a cold glance. Too bad I'm not just good at playing games. He used a few swift moves to overpower him. The leader screamed in agony, Aw, hurts. Are you really that loser gamer, Lamkeet? Lamkeet curled his lips in a scornful smile. That's right. The real deal. The 2 underlings shouted angrily, You're done for. You're dead. They tried to pull the leader away. The leader panicked and shouted, Wait, don't do anything rash. His whole body was trembling as he tried to negotiate. My brother. Let's talk this out. My arm's gonna break. Take it easy. He glared fiercely. Who's your brother? The leader broke into a cold sweat looking at Lamkeet. This guy's aura was terrifying. It's like a demon returning from hell. He yelled aggressively, What now? Still want to make trouble? The guy immediately denied it. No, it's all a misunderstanding. I'm just trying to make a living. We don't need to take it this far. Since you've paid off the debt, we have no reason to cause trouble anymore. Let me go. He turned to the 2 underlings. What do you think? Am I right? Both stuttered. Yeah, right, boss. Lamkeet coldly ordered, Get out of my house immediately. The 3 of them scrambled out in fear. All right, we're leaving. Let's go quickly. The three family members watched in silence as the group scurried away. Tick-Tick boldly grabbed his arm and warned, "You guys are so rude, you know that. If I see you again, I'll have my brother deal with you." The three guys pressed their hands together, begging and crying, "Never again, we won't do it again." She turned to him. "Brother, aren't you going to explain?" Lamkeet was taken aback and repeated, "Explain?" He turned to look at her and asked, "Explain what?" She acted spoiled. "This. You tell me, how did a hidden billionaire suddenly appear in our house?" Lamkeet broke into a cold sweat, screaming internally, "Oh no, I'm done for. How do I explain this so my family doesn't worry?" Seeing him hesitate without giving an answer, Titch asked impatiently, "Hurry up and explain. How did a hidden billionaire appear in our house?" Looking at his vibrant younger sister before him, Lamkeet felt incredibly lucky. Rebirth is truly a blessing. His sister is still alive and healthy. He drifted into memories of the past. In his previous life, because his father had passed away, his sister was critically ill. Their house was drowning in debt, and he couldn't shoulder the family's burdens. Clutching a stack of job applications, Lamkeet had gone to interview at one company after another, but the results were never what he hoped for. Rejection after rejection kept coming. "Go home and wait for our notification. If a suitable opportunity arises, we will contact you." Those failures left him completely devastated. Back then, the job market was incredibly difficult. A normal person like him seemed to have no chance of finding a job. Meanwhile, he suddenly saw an employee handing out flyers promoting the game Era. The employee held this flyer out in front of him. An endless, mysterious world with countless treasures waiting for every player to discover. A single sentence from the employee echoed in Lamkeet's ears. It was like he had found a way to survive. Gaming can actually make a lot of money. And that was the beginning of his future. He thought to himself, the initial reason he became a player, it's shameful to admit, was just to make money. While Lamkeet stood in a corner lost in thought, a voice rang out. "Hey, you greenhorn warrior!" He turned his head. It was a commander of some guild beckoning him. "We need someone who isn't afraid of dying. You in?" He raised his hand and named his price to Lamkeet. "The fee for one battle is 2 copper coins. He was desperate for money, so he agreed without a moment's hesitation. Deal. From then on, every battle was a brush with death, but as long as he survived, he could make money. After many life-and-death battles, the guild commander sighed. "You're a tough one, Lamkeet." He glanced at him. "You survive until the end every single time. If I didn't know better, I'd think you were using some kind of cheat." Lamkeet sat on the ground, his body covered in wounds. Hearing that, he was speechless. Then the commander paid his wage, adding 1 extra copper coin in recognition of his hard work. Then he tilted his head, turned around, and walked away. "Try to be more attentive from now on, okay?" Lamkeet stood silently in place, watching team leader Kim's group walk away. He clutched his few remaining coins tightly. Over time, thanks to his experience fighting against the Grim Reaper year after year, his combat skills became increasingly polished. In the battles that followed, later on, even when faced with situations where his entire team was wiped out, he would survive until the end, even taking on the boss alone as his skills grew sharper. He also developed new ideals, wanting to become the strongest player, believing that pure skill alone could make it happen. He stood upon the foundations of grueling trials and life-or-death battles on the path to becoming the strongest, and more importantly, along that road. He could also earn money to protect those most important to him. Lamkeet became determined that he would definitely be the strongest, and then he met brothers to fight alongside. Fighting and sharing the same goals, Bakli Trongtan and Lamkeet became teammates, and from then on, we made a pact to rely on our own strength, to become the strongest class. Later, the two of them made a pact during battle, with one shouting, "Let's have one more showdown to see who is truly stronger." The other replied, "You're on." The people watching from below the stage whispered, "Hey, this guy is Lamkeet, nicknamed the Immortal War God. Only the most dangerous team battles can get him to join. I've seen his maneuvers before. That is not something a normal person can pull off. He's simply a monster. It's hard to imagine a warrior from the lowest social class could break into the top 10 of the power rankings. That list is full of top-tier figures." From the past battles, the pay he received for fighting skyrocketed, and his family's financial crisis gradually improved. And then one day, a high-stakes matchbroker spoke up, saying he was forced to throw the fight. Hearing this, Lamkeet became furious, slammed his hand on the table, and shouted, "Why can't I win?" He felt completely bewildered. "I clearly have the strength to compete for the top spot. I also dream of becoming the strongest standing at the peak of this era, Lamkeet asked in confusion. Besides, I only need to win this final match. Then I could receive 100 million in prize money and cure my sister's illness immediately. He stared straight at the matchbroker and demanded loudly, "On what grounds? Should I have to throw the fight?" The man began to explain, "The era's peak showdown is actually a game manipulated by money. Someone with your commoner background can't stand in the way. A new star created by the elites, therefore you must lose." Furthermore, he revealed, "Your opponent is your good brother Bakli Trong Than. Losing to him would be a favor to him." Lamkeet turned away sharply, replying with absolute trust, "Bak Li wouldn't betray our pact. He knows why I became a player. So I must give it my all." He was extremely determined. I must become the strongest, gambling everything to take down Bak Li Trong Than. Deep down, Lamkeet always knew. A commoner like him dreaming of using raw skill to change his fate knew that as long as he kept going down this path, it was the right choice. The matchbroker shouted from behind, "Even if you don't surrender, the elites will find a way to make you lose anyway." He tried to convince him, rather than falling from the peak, why not take this chance to back down? But Lamkeet knew he couldn't retreat. Bakli, that kid came from an extraordinary background. No matter how many times he fell, he would have a chance to start over, while a commoner like him falling just once would never be able to get back up. He didn't have a second chance. Suddenly, Lamkeet's phone rang. He picked up. "Hello? What is it, Mom?" A message struck him like a bolt of lightning. "Titch Titch, the hospital said the equipment malfunctioned for no reason. Her condition is worsening. I have no other choice." The phone dropped from his hand, but the voice still echoed in the space, "Just lose Keet." At the hospital, a man in black told his mother. In that moment, Lamkeet lost all his strength. He collapsed and sobbed into his hands. His sister. Returning to reality, that memory made him tear up instinctively. Titch Titch asked, confused, "Brother, are you crying?" Seeing her worried, he quickly wiped his tears and smiled brightly to comfort her. "Why would I cry? You silly girl, I'm clearly just crying because I'm so happy." Titch Titch sensed something was wrong with her brother. "Brother, you're acting strange today. You were just crying and now you're laughing. Can you really earn 1 million playing games?" Lamkeet began to make up a story. "Yeah, because I opened a mysterious chest and a piece of gear sold for an astronomical price. We can live well now." She was extremely excited hearing that. "Oh, there's really such a good thing. Bring the headset here so I can play too." Lamkeet never expected things to turn out like this. He worriedly shouted, "Minors are forbidden from playing this game. Everyone has different reasons for becoming a player. Some aim to overcome life or death battles for honor, some for their dreams. Those battles are never easy, and some just want to escape reality." Standing in the middle of the battlefield, Lamkeet thought to himself, "And me, the reason is very simple to become the strongest. People always assume that those from the lowest social classes are incredibly resilient, born trading their lives for money just like monsters. They can always survive the most difficult and dangerous situations." As one of those from the lower class, Lamkeet understood one thing very clearly, but they didn't know that behind those miracles. For those people, and for him too, there is a reason they must survive to become the strongest, to be the last one standing to protect the most important people. That is the reason he became a player. Back in reality, Lamkeet realized that if he wanted to become the strongest in this life, he needed to buy a few things first. Scene change to another location, an authorized retailer for the border-era dimension. Stepping into the shop, Lamkeet stands pensively in front of a display shelf. Looking at those items, they seem incredibly expensive. He recalls the past. "It wasn't until much later that I could use my savings to buy gear 2 levels lower than this. And Bak Li, you realize this is the difference between the two of you." He thinks to himself, "I should have been using this high-end Supreme Lightning gear long ago." The shop owner sees Lamkeet and greets him warmly. "Is that you, Lamkeet? What's wrong? Are you not used to that starter gear?" He looks straight at the owner and replies, "I want to upgrade to the Supreme Lightning set." The man is extremely surprised and says, "What did you say the Supreme Lightning set? Look, kid, that thing is meant for high-level players. Listen, having dreams is good, but you shouldn't have unrealistic fantasies. Even if you grind for 15 years, I doubt you'll ever even touch that equipment." Suddenly, someone walks up and slams a hand on the counter. "Give me that Supreme Lightning set. I'll pay in full right now." As soon as the owner sees this person, he immediately switches to fawning mode. Oh, young Master Red, you really have a sharp eye. This Supreme Lightning set is the only one left in the entire city specially prepared for high-level players like you. Lomkeet sees it's Red and whispers to himself. Judging by that tone, they're acquaintances. Suddenly, two guys, Mikey and a Triot, stand behind him grumbling, "That trash. Last time we were taken down by that bastard Lomkeet." Red spins around upon hearing this. If it wasn't for that garbage equipment, I would have forced him to log out. Suddenly, his gaze shifts, catches sight of Lomkeet standing right next to him, and he freezes. "What the?" Regaining his senses, he shouts in terror, "Lomkeet, why are you everywhere?" He glances over calmly. "Small world, isn't it? What did I say last time? Do you want another taste of defeat?" Red is already breaking into a cold sweat, but he still talks tough. "Humph, looks like..." Lion still hasn't dealt with you in the game. That's enough out of you. He feels incredibly confident when he realizes, but wait, this is real life. I, the villain. Red have more influence than anyone here. Mikey, standing behind him, suddenly reminds him, "Boss, you seem to have said that back at Tiu Chanmeo." A Triet adds, "Yeah, that sounds familiar." Red hurries to explain, trying to save face. "This guy cheated in the game, that's why we were beaten. In real life, he can't pull any tricks. There's 3 of us. We can't take him down." The owner sees the situation getting very tense and hurriedly steps in to mediate. "Everyone, please don't fight in here. Running a shop isn't easy, you know." Then he turns to him. "Lomkeet, don't be provocative. That's young Master Red. Hurry up and kneel down to apologize. I'm afraid you'll break something in my shop and I won't be able to pay for it." Lomkeet sighs. "Gaming is just gaming. Don't bring it into real life. I was actually going to let you guys off the hook." Red, arrogant as he is, cannot stand this humiliation. "Damn you, go to hell. Today, I'm going to take back the dignity I lost in the game." Mikey and A Triet also grit their teeth in anger. "Can you believe how long it took us to grind those levels?" He did. "I can't believe you made us lose our rank." Right after that, Red draws a knife and lunges at him. "Enough talk, die." Lomkeet watches Red rushing toward him, and in his eyes, sparks seem to fly. In that brief moment, Lomkeet realizes time has slowed down. It turns out the 5 years of fighting in the Shura hell of the era had honed his mind, increased his reflexes, and significantly improved his muscle response. That adaptation and transformation led to a result because his reactions were so fast during combat. It created an effect in his vision similar to time dilation. And just like now in real life, it is the same. Lomkeet easily dodges Red's attack. Red stands there stunned, questioning his reality. What the hell can he even cheat in real life? Before Red has time to react, Lomkeet throws a powerful punch at him. The punch is so fast and strong that Red sees stars immediately. His eyes hurt so much he screams, tears and snot running down his face. He looks pathetic and miserable. Lomkeet looks down at Red from above. "You can't cheat in real life, my friend." Then he looks toward Mikey and a Triet. "I've got plenty of time. You two can come at me together." Both of them see this and run away in terror, abandoning their own teammate. "Boss, we're going first. We'll meet you at the usual spot." Lomkeet doesn't bother with them. He returns to the counter and pushes his card toward the shop owner. "Owner, I'll pay for the Supreme Lightning set in full." The owner, seeing how generous he is extremely confused. Do you really have that much money? Is this for real?" He calmly replies, "The balance on this is enough." After the transaction is finished, the shop owner walks him to the door, smiling and waving, "Welcome back again, with the newly purchased Supreme Lightning gear in hand." On the way, Lomkeet suddenly runs into someone. It turns out to be Hack. He sees him and suddenly shows a look of pure fear. Lomkeet sees Hack standing perfectly still and suddenly realizes, so it's this guy. He asks, "Back there just now. Why didn't you rush in like your buddies?" Hack is so scared his whole body stiffens and it takes him forever to stutter out a few words. He trembles, unable to speak. Hack is so anxious, he's drenched in cold sweat. I want to... Suddenly he kneels in front of Lomkeet. "I want to become stronger." Lomkeet is incredibly surprised at this. Looking at Hack kneeling on the ground, he lets out an "oh." Hack continues to introduce himself. "I am Hack, a punishment knight under Lord Sindu Break." He hesitated for a moment, then with determination looked up and begged to be taken as his apprentice. Linji just gave a cold laugh, turned his back, and walked away. Taking on an apprentice, I have no such intention. But at this point, Hei was determined not to give up. Wait, please, just hear me out. Ever since the day I met you, I've seen you as a god of war returned from hell. He clutched Linjia's leg tightly and continued, I realized one important thing: you are truly powerful. He trembled, pouring out his heart. I chose the purgatory fire talent because I was afraid. Afraid to charge to the front, afraid of getting hurt, afraid of the responsibility, he confessed. So I used a flashy but impractical talent to hide my own weakness. And after those battles, Hai admitted to himself, I am a failure. Right now, I want to change. I want to become strong in an upright way, to become a powerful existence just like you. So please take me as your student. Linji still refused. I'm very sorry, but I have no plans to take on any apprentices right now. He thought to himself, this fool still doesn't know about that yet. Immediately after, Linjie helped Hei up and said calmly, but who knows, maybe in the future. Upon hearing that, Hei's eyes lit up. Master Dobre, you didn't refuse, did you? Watching Hei cheering with joy, he thought to himself, once you realize your own weakness, you've already become strong. He turned, smiled, and said, Era is updating and preparing for the launch of version 1.01. Wait until then. I will watch you and then decide. Hei clenched his fists with determination. I will use my time to prove myself worthy of becoming Master Dobre's student. Linji smiled and stepped forward. The gears of fate at this very moment were turning in ways completely different from his previous life. No one could predict these tiny changes. Linji slowly placed the gaming helmet on his head. His eyes filled with anticipation. As soon as the helmet was activated, it immediately glowed, launching the familiar login system. In the blink of an eye, his consciousness entered the vast game world. Standing in front of the familiar house, Linji furrowed his brows slightly. Ever since Mayor Green gave him this key, he had never been here. It seemed that after the update, the game had set his login location to his own house. Stepping inside the house, he let out a sigh and said, I'm home. At that very moment, the system voice echoed in his ears, Welcome home, Master Dobre. This update version has unlocked the house renovation feature. The voice continued, droning on, echoing through the quiet space. You can renovate this house as you please, and the land within a 500-meter radius around this area has been designated as your sovereign territory. The mechanical voice continued clearly. The higher your reputation in the Era world, the more land benefits you will receive in the future. Hearing the notification, Linji was stunned for a moment. He hadn't expected the game to have this hidden feature. In his previous life, he didn't have a house, so he didn't know about this. Glancing around the room, he shook his head helplessly and sighed. But this house is completely empty. It's basically unlivable. After some thought, Linji immediately started purchasing all the necessary items. Linji couldn't help but grumble. So the mayor handed me a completely empty house. Unfinished, just waiting for me to spend all the money I worked so hard to earn on renovations. In fact, these necessary expenses are enough to buy a luxury villa. He sure knows how to do business. After a few seconds of silent reflection, Linji narrowed his eyes slightly and spoke. However, he scanned the entire house again. He nodded in satisfaction. It doesn't look too bad. The money wasn't wasted. I can always earn it back later. Right at that moment, a rhythmic knocking sounded from outside, catching him by surprise. With a hint of caution, Linji slowly walked toward the main door. Stopping in front of the door, he frowned slightly and asked in a low voice, Who is it? Standing outside the door with a familiar faint smile, Halian spoke up. Hello, Master Dobre. Upon seeing the person in front of him, a wave of intense wariness rose in his heart. A bad premonition. She leaned lightly against the doorframe, curling her lips meaningfully as she said, We are practically old friends. Aren't you going to welcome me? Looking at her dangerous smile, Linji remained silently vigilant. Halian controlled all the underworld forces in Cat Town. Nothing good ever came from being involved with her. Remembering what happened in his previous life, there were many malicious players in Era who engaged in PvP. Once they turned red-named, they couldn't move normally in most public areas. Crossing his arms, he thought in silence, recalling the familiar information. An underworld NPC like Halian would collect these players, who provided lifestyle services. Linjia's gaze turned a bit colder when he recalled Halian's reputation. Of course you have to pay extra. The players who sought out Halian were never the good kind. Maintaining the mysterious smile on her lips, she slowly said, "I have a way for you to make money." He immediately looked suspicious and replied coldly, "This is the first time I've heard of an NPC coming to someone's door to hand out quests. Not interested, thanks." As soon as he finished speaking, Halian pushed the door open and walked into the house. "In Cat Town, no one else can do this quest but you." After casually sitting on the sofa, she slowly recounted, "In the West Wind Ridge, west of the town, a lair of man-eating magical beasts has appeared." Hearing this, Linji furrowed his brows in surprise. Then, lowering his voice, he asked, "Is there really such a thing?" Halian's gaze turned a few degrees colder at the mention of that incident. "That thing is incredibly strong. It has devoured many of my underlings, so I need someone to deal with it." After hearing the whole story, he crossed his arms, thought for a moment, and asked calmly, "Your people usually only operate near the town, right? Why run all the way to a remote place like West Wind Ridge to throw your lives away?" She immediately retorted coldly, "In our line of work, the rule is not to ask too many questions. You just need to say whether you'll do it or not. The payment is 100 copper coins." Hearing that price, Lomkeet snatched the apple out of Halian's hand and said, 10 silver coins." Having her apple stolen, she immediately widened her eyes in annoyance and shouted, "You dare to hike the price that high on me? 10 silver coins is equivalent to 10,000 copper coins 100 times more." Taking a bite of the apple, he replied calmly, "Since this was a quest that came to my doorstep, the price is of course up to, I decide 10 silver coins is my price." Hearing that, Halian immediately let out a cold laugh, crossed her arms, and continued, "With that much money, I could hire everyone in the whole town to work for me. Why would I have to find you?" Lomkeet's eyes grew sharper. "Coming to me in person, there must be a reason. If you won't tell the truth, let me say it for you." Hearing that, she raised an eyebrow, intrigued, and said, "Interesting. Go on, then, let's hear your guess." In his mind, he quickly reached a conclusion. Halian's treasure trove was located at West Wind Ridge, a hidden dungeon that appeared after the game updated. That cave had been overrun by new monsters. Gently spinning the apple in his hand, Lomkeet calmly looked at Halian and said, "You want to get your fortune back, but you can't find anyone suitable to go in." Seeing the slight change in her reaction, he continued slowly, "The money you swiped is hidden in there, isn't it? It can't just be 10 silver coins, can it? Perhaps it's 100 gold coins or more, along with countless rare treasures." Hearing this, her expression changed instantly. Her eyes filled with suspicion. "How do you know that?" "You're just a new player. How could you know this?" Facing that probing gaze, Lomkeet only scoffed silently to himself. "I am a reincarnator who returned from the future. What secret of an NPC is there that I don't know?" Recalling the events of the past, his eyes grew complex. In his previous life, Halian's treasure vault became a treasure-hunting quest that caused a fever across the entire server, and I participated in it too. Naturally, that happened after Little Chan. Mayo was destroyed in the early stages. Remembering that dark future, Lomkeet's eyes grew cold. Back then, Halian fell onto a path of evil. She killed far too many innocent players and was ultimately wiped out by a raid party. The Halian of Dark Alley became nothing more than a story told about an NPC in the history of the next era. After a few seconds of silence, he looked straight at Halian and said slowly, "But right now I want to discuss that money with you. If I report this to Mayor Green—" Lomkeet's lips curled into a dangerous smile as he kept up the pressure. "Do you think Halian of Dark Alley will survive until the next dungeon?" Hearing that threat, she immediately snorted with contempt and replied, "That old man wouldn't dare interfere with my business." Hearing that price, Halian immediately frowned, heartbroken, and spoke up. 10 silver coins! Someone as money-grubbing as me! Halian could never cough up that much." Seeing her reaction, he suddenly laughed and calmly said, "In consideration of you being so greedy, I can do this for free." Hearing that unexpected answer, Halian immediately opened her eyes wide in disbelief and asked, "What, you're really not charging me?" Lomkeet's gaze grew serious. "I want you to give up your status as the master of Dark Alley." In his heart, he silently contemplated many things. Becoming a villain happens in a single moment. That's the reality of it. NPCs are the same. Recalling their first meeting, Lomkeet's gaze deepened. The first time I met Halian, I felt she wasn't like the NPC in those memories. Her story was just a small detail in the game's plot. Scenes of the chaos from that year flashed in his mind. Later, little Chan Meo was broken by the zealot, a griffin who became the new ruler. Lam Keat's gaze turned cold at the memory of that outcome. Mayor Green was killed. Halian submitted to the ruthless griffin and became a tool for evil. A complicated, indescribable feeling welled up inside him as he continued to think silently. She believed in the evil nature of humanity, turning that belief into action, letting hatred grow unchecked in her heart. She became an accomplice to evil, became a villain, became a boss of the antagonist faction, and was then killed. Looking at the Halian in front of him right now, Lam Keat's gaze suddenly changed. But in this life, I have unexpectedly discovered another side of this NPC, a side that no one else knows about. In his memory, she stood coldly among the crowd and ordered, "Brothers, give him a taste of the dark alley welcome ritual." Halian wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth and laughed, saying, "I couldn't take you down without using my blade." She tossed an item toward him and laughed, clearly amused. "A welcome gift for you, don't be a stranger. Hope we have a fun collaboration in the future, Lord Break." Recalling the enthusiastic demeanor of Halian back then, Lam Keat silently thought, she is also someone who was once excited and passionate about a simple fun fight. This time the scales of fate might just tip the other way. Let me rephrase that request. Her expression changed instantly and she whispered, "That's impossible." He immediately activated his special skill, Eye of Truth. Inside Lin Ji's mind, information flashed. The Eye of Truth has the ability to detect when an NPC is lying. Xiaolian gritted her teeth in annoyance and said, "You bastard, using the gift I gave you to probe me." Lin Jie slowly drew his conclusion. The items inside were truly crucial to the Shadow Ridge. Even if she had to give up everything else, she had to keep them. Hearing this, she suddenly drew her sword, pointed it straight at him, and said coldly, "I respect you, Lord Dobrit." Facing the sharp blade, Lin Jie remained calm and replied, "This is my territory, Xiaolian. You'd better show some respect. I'm the only one who can help you get your things back." Hearing those words, Lian finally lowered her sword slowly. "This money, I saved it my entire life to earn it. If I don't work as a black blade later, it's enough to trade in this society. I agree. This mission is yours. You must complete it." Lin Ji rubbed his temples helplessly and muttered, "I can't believe I actually accepted a pro bono quest from Xiaolian." He sighed in resignation. My brain must have gotten caught in a door. A system interface suddenly popped up, confirming the mission had been accepted. After a few taps on the screen, Xiaolian calmly said, "All right, the location has been marked on your map." Lin Ji held out his hand and said nonchalantly, "Give me the gear." She frowned, confused. "What do you mean you want money? Just a moment ago you said it was free." He replied calmly and concisely, "A weapon." Xiaolian raised an eyebrow, still confused. "What kind of weapon?" Recalling the last time, Lin Jie crossed his arms and said calmly, "Last time one slash of yours snapped my sword. I still don't have a proper replacement. Didn't you say you'd compensate me?" She retorted coldly and firmly, "I don't use swords, I only use blades." After a few seconds of silent thought, Xiaolian slowly drew her weapon. "Here, it's the night-walking ghost." Lin Ji observed the blade before him and immediately assessed it. Long enough, has a sharp edge, and can be used with both hands. To me, it's not much different from a sword. Giving it a few test swings in the air, Lin Jie silently judged Xiaolian's blade seems even heavier than it looks. Immediately after, the system displayed the full stats and special effects of the weapon. With a hint of interest, he swung the blade easily, slicing through a branch in front of him. Lin Ji said slowly, "If it weren't for Xiaolian's markers, I would have spent all day trying to find the entrance." Feeling an abnormal surge of energy, he turned alert. The mysterious magical beast must be here. Just then, a ferocious wild boar charged out from the bushes ahead. Looking at the info floating above the monster's head, Lin Jie muttered, "Level 1 wild boar." Looking at the boar, he just gave a faint smile. In the game era, this guy is basically food. Just then, in the sky above Lin Jie, a giant tail suddenly swept past. He looked at the shadow that had just zipped through the air. His heart jolted violently. What Lin Jie's eyes narrowed in disbelief as he looked up. No way. Feeling that terrifying aura, he gripped the hilt of his blade tightly. "Why is it here?" Lin Jie blurted out. "A dragon." Just then the cold voice of the system rang in his ears. "Detected Black Dragon Zodiac. Level 8. Warning, your current level is 2. Looking down from above with a look of disdain, Zodiac said coldly, "Foolish human. You actually think you're someone special and have the audacity to challenge me? How laughable. From the communication screen, Xiaolian's voice suddenly rang out. You've already encountered it. That was fast. He snapped, shouting, You mean this thing? Were you trying to send me here to die? Linji gritted his teeth. A boss at this level needs at least a 5-person party to handle. She answered lazily and calmly. The difficulty of wild bosses increases with the number of players involved. If you can't handle this, calling for more people would only make things worse. Leaning back in the hot spring, Xiaolian watched the screen and laughed with amusement. Besides Dawn's blade, I've dueled with you before. Your skill level is far better than those level 4 or 5 deadbeats. Linji began to realize something was seriously wrong. Monsters around the beginner town shouldn't exceed level 4. Even the griffin was only just under level 5. A level 8. Black dragon spawning here. Something is definitely wrong. Hearing him complain, she just laughed and said calmly, You managed to take down that griffin solo before, so you must have a way to deal with this dragon, right? Tightening his grip on the blade, Linji frowned, arguing helplessly. That is a 6-level gap. He gritted his teeth and continued. Is this the kind of gap that can be closed just by skill? Zodiac's voice suddenly boomed, imposing and cold. Intruder, you have reached my lair. I will be merciful and give you 2 choices. I can annihilate you completely right here. And naturally, not even your ashes will remain. With an air of absolute arrogance, it continued slowly. Alternatively, I am happy to grant you the special favor of allowing a new recruit into my ranks of 5 servants. You need only kneel here and praise the glory of Zodiac. Hearing that grandiose threat, Linji just smirked and replied, Not interested. I'm only here to remind you. You seem to be illegally occupying someone else's house. Hearing that, the dragon immediately flew into a rage. Its golden eyes blazed with terrifying, murderous intent. These treasures in this vault rightfully belong to me, Zodiac. He muttered inwardly, realizing that the Era game had truly redefined people's prejudices about dragons, haughty, arrogant, and treating others like servants guarding their wealth. Right, it seems the Shadow District's Halin is the same. Provoked Zodiac roared in fury and bellowed, Then prepare to face my punishment. The system's cold voice immediately rang out, Black Dragon. Zodiac has locked onto you as its target. Lumket's heart turned extremely serious. Even in his past life, he had defeated a black dragon. But that was with a full party of 8, and he was already level 3. He silently analyzed the current situation. In Era, the difference in stats between characters, level 2 and level 3 is nearly double. Even though he carried the experience and techniques from his past life, he gripped his sword hilt tightly, thinking deeply. But right now, this body's stats are too poor. He gritted his teeth in frustration. Halin, you really pulled a fast one on me. At that moment, Lumkeet immediately leaned his body to dodge a powerful attack. During the battle, his mind remained incredibly sharp, analyzing the dragon. It usually only had 4 attacks: fire breath, claw, swipes, biting, and tail sweeps. If any of those landed, it would be enough to one-shot him. Zodiac roared, Human! How dare you challenge my authority? He silently memorized every minor movement. Each attack had a slight telegraph. When breathing, it would tilt its head back to inhale. When swinging its tail, it would use its body brace its 2 front legs and twist. Staring at Zodiac, Lumkeet focused intently. When biting, it would pull its head back quickly, then open its maw and snap forward. In his head, he simulated the entire fight. He continued analyzing. As for the fan-shaped claw swipe, there's a half-second opening after the attack. Realizing its last move, Lumkeet's eyes brightened. Half a second had passed since the claw swipe. Not missing the chance, he squeezed the sword hilt. This was the moment to counterattack. Immediately, Lumkeet lunged forward, swinging the Dadu Kui straight at Zodiac. Caught off guard by the counter, it roared with murderous rage. Damn fly! Seeing the massive jaws lunging toward him. Note original text lines, split the action, merged for flow. Lumkeet's expression changed. He couldn't dodge the bite. In this critical moment, he activated his defensive skill and shouted, Griffin's Golden Shield! Instantly, a brilliant golden light erupted, enveloping Lumkeet's body. Borrowing the opening from his defensive skill, he immediately counterattacked, forcing Zodiac to back away. Seeing the layer of golden light around his body, it roared in shock. What was that? He panted slightly after the strike. Lumkeet wiped blood from the corner of his mouth and muttered, Barely saved my own life. If I can't break its defense, how am I supposed to win? I need to think of a way. Zodiac sneered with contempt. Seems that toy of yours is useless now, weakling. Kiet immediately recognized the dangerous skill dragon, Breath Sweep. It would continuously spray fire in a fan shape. If fired point blank, it was impossible to dodge. His eyes turned serious. As he calculated, when fighting dragons, normal players try to keep a safe distance. However, increasing the distance only widens the area of effect for its breath, making it even more dangerous. Staring at its massive body, Kiet's eyes sharpened. The true safe distance. He quickly lunged forward, raising his sword to attack. That is actually 0. Zodiac roared in astonishment. What? How are you so fast? A feeling of disbelief rose in its heart. The speed of this player, was nothing like a level 2. Taking advantage of Zodiac's delayed reaction, Kiet swung the Dadu Kui down again. He frowned in annoyance and muttered, What kind of useless sword is this? It didn't even deal damage. The massive tail behind it remained completely unscathed after his attack. Zodiac laughed scornfully. You couldn't even break my dragon scales. I overestimated you, you piece of junk. Just then, from his communication device, Halian's voice suddenly rang out. We almost forgot to mention one thing. The Dadu Kui is a bit afraid of strangers. Hearing that belated explanation, Kiet frowned in irritation and said, Why tell me something so important only now? He quickly sensed the anomaly in the inherited sword. The weapon had a spirit. Those not acknowledged by it could not unleash its full potential. Kiet's gaze turned serious as he asked about the activation condition. What is the condition to be acknowledged? She replied calmly. You must prove that. You have personally gone through a trial of life and death. He remembered the countless quests he had experienced in the game. He had seen many strange conditions, but when it came to facing life and death, the corners of Kiet's mouth curled up confidently. In the heat of battle, I am the top of the line. Seeing the fire gathering again, he went on high alert. Dragon Breath Sweep is coming again. Just as Zodiac spewed a massive sea of fire, Kiet leaned his body to dodge with extreme speed. Moving constantly through the burning flames, he began changing direction to head toward it. Kiet's eyes locked onto Zodiac's neck, silently calculating. The target is 3 inches up on the dragon's neck. Looking at the special scale's reflecting light, he confirmed the target its reverse scale. As soon as he closed the distance, Kiet swung the Dadu Kui hard and shouted, Slash! Realizing the unusual danger, it immediately flapped its wings to retreat hard, dodging the attack. Zodiac sneered with contempt. Naive human, do you think you can hurt me with that? After the missed strike, he quickly landed and stabilized his body in the middle of the battlefield, looking up at it flying in the air. Kiet frowned in frustration, forgetting that this guy could fly. He immediately activated his grip strength enhancement skill. Halian's expression shifted instantly as he spoke. It was fine before, but this time it's a dragon's breath shockwave. Your current body armor absolutely won't be able to block it. Kiet's gaze remained incredibly calm as he tightened his grip on the night demon blade in his hand. If this blade only recognizes those who don't fear death, then the searing flames gathering in Zodiac's maw signaled that a new attack was about to strike. If the blade in her hand only recognizes those who don't fear death, then the searing flames gathering in Zodiac's maw signal that another strike is about to come crashing down. The corner of his mouth slowly curled into a confident smile amidst the extreme danger. Then the famous blade in my hand right now. Kiet's eyes grew terrifyingly cold. Must be it's revered like a god? He lunged forward decisively with aggressive momentum. Because I am the god of war, returning from hell. At that very moment, the system's voice rang out mechanical and cold. Hidden skill unlocked defense break. Without a moment's hesitation, he stomped hard on the ground and shot straight toward it. She was instantly shocked to her core. What? To be able to unleash this much power, in such a short amount of time. Sensing the abnormal pressure from his opponent, a sense of danger began to emerge within Zodiac. This tiny human actually makes me feel threatened, it roared in fury. You lowly human, who do you think you are? Zodiac's golden eyes burned with killing intent. As it continued to bellow ferociously, I will make you die in excruciating pain, so you regret your insolence today. Kiet's mind remained crystal clear. Analyzing the situation, this blade's skill is suitable for close-quarters combat against this dragon. If I risk everything on one full power strike, I can defeat it. It let out a laugh of pure contempt. Finally, you've finally made a stupid choice. You ignorant player, flapping its giant wings. Zodiac looked down coldly from mid-air. Now that you've jumped into the air, you've personally thrown away your last chance to dodge. High in the air, filled with murderous intent, his eyes remained perfectly calm. That's right. Just one small mistake in this jump. It is enough to fall straight into hell. Feeling its scorching breath rushing toward him, ManhwaCapped secretly calculated. The line between life and death was decided in mere milliseconds. Not a single ripple of hesitation appeared in his heart. But me, I can absolutely pull this off perfectly. Without hesitation, almost like an obsession, ManhwaCapped funneled his entire will into this final strike, trusting the blade in his hand. With both hands gripping tight, his breath was fiery, every inch of his skin burning hot. All the will he had gathered was poured into this moment. Watching the tiny human charging at him without a shred of fear, Zodiac roared ferociously, "Die, you piece of trash!" His eyes didn't waver, not even once. I believe in these things. When in this chaotic world, the only thing I can trust with my life. Mid-air amidst the flames, the corner of ManhwaCapped's mouth curled into a resolute smile. This bet the very moment the blades were about to clash. He trusted himself completely. Beyond the possibility of him winning, no other outcome existed.